Consider a river. On some days, it is a raging current, churning and crashing over sharp rocks, its power undeniable and fierce. On other days, it is a surface of glass, so still it reflects the entire sky, holding the clouds and the sun in its gentle embrace. The river never tries to hold onto a single drop of water, nor does it push away the fallen leaves that float upon it. It does not rush to the ocean, nor does it cling to the mountainside. It simply flows, in a constant state of release, a perfect dance of acceptance and change. Our own mind, in this modern world, is so often the opposite. It is a river at war with itself. We feel a constant, churning pressure, a current of anxiety that never seems to rest. It is the pressure to be more, to do more, to have more. It is the fear of an uncertain future and the ghost of a past we cannot change. We cling desperately to moments of happiness, trying to build a dam to hold them in place, only to feel the pain more acutely when they inevitably pass. We try to build walls to keep out sorrow, to deny loss, to fight against the natural currents of life. We are told that success is found in swimming harder, faster, against the tide. But this struggle, this constant battle against the nature of reality, is leaving us exhausted. It is a quiet epidemic of the soul, a feeling of being overwhelmed, not by a single great tragedy, but by the sheer weight of everything. We feel stuck, stranded on the banks of our own lives, watching the water rush by, convinced we are failing because we cannot control its direction. We are tired of being tired, weary from the endless effort of holding on. But what if there was another way, an ancient path, a stream of wisdom that has flowed for thousands of years, which teaches something radically different? It does not teach us how to swim faster or how to build stronger dams. It teaches us the simple, profound art of letting go and allowing ourselves to be carried by the river. This is not about giving up. It is not resignation. It is a wise and courageous acceptance of life, exactly as it is. It is the path of Buddhist thought, an exploration into the nature of our own minds that reveals how to find peace, not in some distant, imagined paradise, but right here, in the midst of the flowing, changing, unpredictable river of life. It is an invitation to stop fighting, to stop resisting, and to finally, truly, come to rest. It is a journey into the heart of acceptance, healing, and the profound peace that comes when we learn to let everything simply flow. We begin our journey by looking inwards, not at a distant concept, but at the immediate, undeniable reality of our own mind. You might be sitting in a quiet room, with no television, no music, no one else speaking, and yet, the space inside your head can feel like a crowded marketplace, filled with noise, chatter, and a relentless, hurried energy. This is the starting point for our understanding, this recognition of the raging river of the mind. This river of inner turmoil is fed by two powerful streams, one from the outside world and one, far more powerful, from within. The first stream is the noise of the world. In our modern age, this stream has become a torrent. Our attention is the most valuable currency, and everyone is bidding for it. The phone in your pocket is a constant source of this noise. It buzzes, it pings, it flashes with notifications. Each one, a small but insistent pull on your awareness. It promises connection, information, entertainment, but it delivers a state of perpetual interruption. We scroll through endless feeds, our minds consuming a diet of disconnected images, fleeting opinions, and curated moments of other people's lives. This creates a subtle but pervasive anxiety, a fear of missing out, a sense that we should always be looking somewhere else, doing something else. The news cycle presents a constant parade of crises, demanding our outrage and our fear. Our work follows us home, with emails arriving at all hours, dissolving the sacred boundary between labor and rest. This external noise trains our mind to be distracted. It teaches us to jump from one stimulus to the next, to seek novelty, and to feel uncomfortable with silence, with stillness. We become like a boat, tossed on a stormy sea, pushed and pulled by waves we did not create, with no control over our direction. And while we could, perhaps, turn off the phone, close the laptop, and retreat from the world for a moment, we quickly discover that the loudest noise was never coming from the outside. The true source of our exhaustion flows from the second stream, the internal noise. This is the ceaseless monologue inside our own skull, the narrator who never, ever stops talking. If you pause for a moment and listen, truly listen, you will hear it. It is the voice that is commenting on these very words, judging them, analyzing them. It is the voice that, just a moment ago, was probably thinking about what you need to do later today, or replaying a conversation from yesterday. This inner narrator is a master of time travel. It drags us into the past, forcing us to relive our mistakes, our regrets, our embarrassing moments. It plays them on a loop, each time with the same sharp sting of shame or sadness. Then, just as quickly, it catapults us into the future. It rehearses conversations that may never happen. It paints detailed pictures of worst-case scenarios, creating elaborate fantasies of failure and loss. We worry about our health, our finances, our children, our reputation. We live through 1,000 potential tragedies in our minds, suffering the anxiety of each one, even though almost none of them will ever come to pass. This internal noise is not just a narrator, it is also a relentless judge. It holds up an impossible standard of perfection and constantly finds us lacking. It is the source of the words I should have, and I must not. It compares our life, our body, our success to the seemingly perfect lives we see on social media or to the achievements of our peers. It whispers that we are not smart enough, not attractive enough, not working hard enough. This inner critic is a cruel companion, one that we would never tolerate from an external friend. Yet we allow it to live in our minds, directing our lives with its harsh and unforgiving commentary. The weight of this constant judgment is immense. It drains our confidence, stifles our creativity, and makes it impossible to feel a simple sense of contentment. In the traditions of the East, this restless, chaotic, and uncontrollable nature of the untrained mind is given a beautiful and accurate name: the monkey mind. Imagine a wild monkey, drunk on wine, stung by a scorpion, and possessed by a demon. Now imagine this monkey in a forest, leaping from branch to branch, with frantic, unpredictable energy. One moment, it is grabbing a fruit of past regret, tasting its bitterness. The next, it swings to a branch of future anxiety, shaking it violently. Then, it is distracted by a flicker of a random memory, a snippet of a song, a flash of sensory desire, a sudden impulse of anger. It never stays still. It has no peace. It is driven by pure, raw impulse. This is our mind. It is not your personal failing that your mind behaves this way. It is simply its nature, when left untrained. And the greatest source of our suffering comes from how we react to this monkey. Our instinct is to try and control it. We see the chaos, and we think we must tame it by force. We try to chain the monkey to one branch, to command it to be still. When a distracting thought arises during a quiet moment, we get angry with ourselves. Stop thinking that, we command. Focus. We try to suppress the worries, to push away the sad memories. But what happens when you try to hold a wild monkey still? It struggles, it screeches, it fights back with even more ferocity. Our attempt to control the mind becomes a battle, a war waged within ourselves. This fight is utterly exhausting. It consumes vast reserves of our mental and emotional energy, leaving us drained and defeated. We feel like a failure for not being able to control our own thoughts, which only adds another layer of judgment from the inner critic. Another branch for the monkey to leap to. There is an old story about a man who wanted the surface of a lake to be perfectly still. He went down to the water's edge and saw ripples being created by the wind. Annoyed by the disturbance, he began to slap at the water with his hands, trying to flatten the waves. But of course, his every action, his every desperate slap, only created more ripples, more turmoil. The more he struggled, the more chaotic the water became. Frustrated and exhausted, he finally gave up. He collapsed on the shore and simply sat there, watching the lake. And as he sat, doing nothing, just observing, the wind began to die down. The ripples, no longer being fed by his struggle, slowly began to soften. The turmoil subsided, and in time, the surface of the lake became a perfect mirror, reflecting the trees, the sky, and his own tired face with absolute clarity. Our mind is this lake. Our frantic efforts to suppress thoughts and control emotions are the slaps on the water. We are the source of the very turmoil we are trying to stop. The wisdom of this story, and the wisdom of the path we are exploring, is that the way to stillness is not through fighting, but through a gentle, non-judgmental observation. It is about letting the monkey leap, but not leaping with it. It is about letting the ripples exist, knowing they will eventually settle on their own. When we live our lives completely lost in this raging river of the mind, the consequences are profound. The first casualty is the present moment. Life is not lived in the past or the future. Life is only ever happening right now, in this single, precious breath. But the monkey mind is never here. When you are eating a meal, it is already planning the rest of your day. When you are with a loved one, it is replaying a mistake you made at work. When you are watching a sunset, it is worrying about tomorrow. We go through our days on autopilot, our bodies present, but our minds somewhere else entirely. We miss the taste of our food, the warmth of the sun on our skin, the genuine connection in a friend's eyes. Our life becomes a series of tasks to be completed, a checklist to get through, rather than a rich tapestry of moments to be truly lived and felt. The second casualty is our ability to feel genuine joy. Even when something wonderful happens, the inner narrator is quick to step in. We get a promotion, and for a fleeting second there is joy, but it is immediately followed by the thought, now I have more responsibility. What if I fail? We are on a beautiful vacation, and the mind whispers, it's almost over, soon you'll be back at work. The monkey mind cannot allow for simple, uncomplicated happiness. It filters our experiences through a lens of fear and judgment, diluting our joy and poisoning our peace. We become strangers to a quiet, contented heart. We have now seen the nature of this inner chaos. We have recognized the streams of external and internal noise that feed it. We have named the restless energy of the monkey mind and understood that our struggle to control it is what drains us of our life force. We have seen how this inner state disconnects us from our own lives. We have looked honestly at the symptom. The next logical step in any healing journey is to look for the cause. Why is the mind like this? What is the fundamental root of this endless thirst and dissatisfaction? Having identified the river of chaos, we must now journey to its source. Having sat for a moment by the banks of the raging river of the mind, and having honestly witnessed its chaotic currents, we can now move from observation to inquiry. Like a compassionate physician sitting with a patient, the first step is to listen, to witness the symptoms. The next, most crucial step is to make a diagnosis. Without a correct diagnosis, any attempt at a cure will be haphazard and ineffective. The wisdom of the Buddhist path is, in its essence, a profound medical science of the mind. The Buddha is often described not as a god to be worshipped, but as a great physician who, through his own deep investigation, diagnosed the fundamental ailment of the human heart and prescribed a clear and effective path to healing. His first great insight, the foundation of his teaching, was a simple, honest, and courageous acknowledgement of the symptom itself. He gave it the name dukkha. This word, from the ancient Pali language, is often translated as suffering, but its meaning is far more subtle and universal than that. To us, suffering often implies great tragedy, intense pain, or deep sorrow, and while dukkha certainly includes these things, it also encompasses the much more common background hum of dissatisfaction that pervades so much of our lives. It is the feeling that things are not quite right. It is the subtle but persistent sense of being unfulfilled. It is the stress of trying to hold on to things that are changing. It is the disappointment that arises when reality does not match our hopes. It is the anxiety of not knowing what the future holds. Dukkha is the vague restlessness that makes us reach for our phone when we have a moment of stillness. It is the itch in the mind that can never quite be scratched. It is the feeling of being fundamentally unsettled. In diagnosing this, the Buddha was not being pessimistic. He was being a realist. He was simply naming the condition that we all feel, whether we admit it to ourselves or not. It is the baseline state of the untrained mind. But a diagnosis of a symptom is not enough. A true physician seeks the cause. And this is the second, and perhaps most hopeful, of the great insights. After identifying the reality of dukkha, the Buddha pointed directly to its origin. He said that the cause of this pervasive dissatisfaction is something he called tanha. This word translates as thirst or craving. It is a deep, instinctual, and powerful force within the mind that is constantly grasping, clinging, and wanting. This is a profoundly optimistic diagnosis. Why? Because if our suffering were caused by the world itself, or by some inherent flaw in our being, we would be helpless. But if it is caused by a specific, identifiable mechanism within our own mind, this mechanism of thirst, then, there is a possibility of a cure. The problem is not that life is inherently flawed, but that our relationship to life is skewed by this constant, insatiable thirst. To understand this thirst, we can look at its three primary forms. The first, and most obvious, is the craving for sensory pleasures. This is the thirst for things that feel good to our senses. It is the desire for delicious food, for beautiful sights, for pleasant music, for praise and recognition, for physical comfort and intimacy. In our modern consumer culture, this form of thirst is amplified 1,000 times over. We are constantly told that happiness is just one purchase away: the next gadget, the new car, the fashionable clothes, the perfect vacation. These are all presented as the cure for our inner discontent. We scroll through social media, a torrent of carefully crafted images of pleasure, and the mind whispers, "I want that." This thirst is for the dopamine hit, the momentary thrill, the fleeting satisfaction. These pleasures are not inherently bad. A good meal is a joy. A beautiful sunset is a gift. But tanha is the dependency on these things for our happiness. It is the belief that if only we could secure an endless supply of pleasant experiences, we would finally be content. The second form of thirst is more subtle, but even more powerful. It is the craving for existence, for becoming. This is the thirst of the ego. It is the deep desire to be someone, to have a solid, important, and lasting identity. It is the relentless ambition that drives us to seek fame, fortune, and power. It is the need to be seen as smart, or successful, or righteous. It is the constant project of building and defending our self-image. This is the energy that fuels the monkey mind's constant striving. It is never content with who we are right now. It is always looking to the future, thinking, when I get that promotion, then I will be worthy. When I finally get that relationship, then my life will be complete. When I am recognized for my talents, then I can rest. It is a craving to solidify our sense of self, to make ourselves permanent and secure in a world that is fundamentally insecure and impermanent. It is a thirst to become a fixed noun in a world that is an ever-changing verb. The third form of thirst is the shadow of the other two. It is the craving for non-existence, for annihilation. This is the energy of aversion. Just as we crave pleasant feelings, we crave the destruction of unpleasant ones. When we feel anxiety, we want to annihilate it. When we feel boredom, we want to escape it. When we feel grief, we want to numb it. This is the thirst that drives us to distraction, to addiction, to avoidance. We binge-watch television series to avoid the feeling of loneliness. We lose ourselves in work to avoid problems at home. We get angry and lash out to push away a feeling of vulnerability. This craving for non-existence is not a desire to die, but a desire for our painful feelings to die. It is a deep resistance to the reality of discomfort. It is our desperate attempt to run away from the parts of our experience that we do not like. All three forms of this thirst operate under a single, tragic illusion. They promise to quench our thirst, but they are like drinking salt water. When you are lost at sea and dying of thirst, the salt water of the ocean all around you seems to promise relief, but if you drink it, its salt content only dehydrates you further, making your thirst more intense, more agonizing, bringing you closer to death. So it is with tanha. The new phone brings a jolt of pleasure, but in a week, the novelty has faded, and the underlying feeling of lack returns, now demanding the next new thing. The promotion brings a feeling of validation, but it is quickly replaced by the anxiety of the new responsibilities. The distraction successfully numbs the sadness for a few hours, but when it is over, the sadness is still there, perhaps now with an added layer of shame for having run away. We are caught in a self-perpetuating cycle. The thirst leads to drinking, and the drinking leads to more thirst. This is the engine of dukkha. In the rich imagery of Buddhist cosmology, there is a realm of beings called pretas, or hungry ghosts. It is said they inhabit a world of scarcity and desire. They are depicted with enormous distended bellies, which represent their vast and insatiable cravings. Their appetites are boundless, yet their throats are as thin as a needle's eye, and their mouths are no bigger than a pinhole. They are constantly tormented by a raging hunger and a burning thirst, but they can never take in enough to satisfy their cavernous stomachs. They see luscious fruits and clear rivers, but when they approach, the fruit turns to dust and the water evaporates. This is a powerful metaphor for the human condition when governed by tanha. We live in a world that constantly presents us with images of fulfillment. Advertisements, media, and our own imaginations create endless visions of happiness. But our very craving, our desperate grasping, makes it impossible to find true, lasting satisfaction. We are the hungry ghosts, starving in the midst of a feast, because the problem is not a lack of things to consume, but the very nature of our insatiable thirst. Our entire modern economy is, in many ways, an engine for creating hungry ghosts. It is a system that depends on our perpetual dissatisfaction. It is designed to create a sense of lack, and then to offer a temporary saltwater solution for a price. It thrives on our tanha, so when we feel this constant thirst, this sense that we are not enough, that we do not have enough, we should not see it as a personal failure. We are simply well-trained citizens of a culture of craving. This diagnosis is the crucial turning point. The chaos in our minds is not random. The river of our anxiety is not without a source. Its source is this deep, powerful, and relentless thirst. It is our clinging to pleasure, our clinging to self, and our aversion to pain. Understanding this gives us power. It moves the problem from the vast, uncontrollable world outside to the intimate, observable space of our own heart and mind. We are no longer victims of circumstance, but participants in a pattern. And if we can see a pattern, we can begin to change it. If the sickness is clinging, then the next step in our healing is to look closely at the things we are clinging to. What is their true nature? Are they as solid and dependable as our thirst makes them out to be? This inquiry leads us directly to the next great truth, the truth of the ever-flowing, ever-changing nature of reality itself. We have now made our diagnosis. We have traced the raging river of our anxiety back to its source, and we have found there a deep and powerful thirst, a craving the Buddha called tanha. It is this relentless wanting, this grasping for pleasure and permanence, this pushing away of pain, that is the hidden engine of our discontent. But this diagnosis naturally leads to a follow-up question. If our suffering comes from clinging, what is the nature of the things we are clinging to? Our thirst convinces us that happiness, security, and our very sense of self are solid ground, stable islands in the chaotic river of life. We believe if we could just reach one of those islands and build a fortress there, we would finally be safe. But the next great insight of this ancient wisdom asks us to look again with clear and honest eyes. It invites us to investigate the very nature of the ground beneath our feet. And when we do, we discover something astonishing. There are no islands. There is no solid ground. There is only the river. Everything we thought was stable, everything we try to hold on to, is itself part of the flow. This fundamental truth of reality is called anicca, or impermanence. To a mind conditioned by thirst, the idea of impermanence can sound terrifying. It can feel like a philosophy of despair, a dark proclamation that nothing lasts and all is lost. But this is a profound misunderstanding. Anicca is not a belief to be adopted or a depressing philosophy to be endured. It is a simple, observable, and neutral fact of existence. It is not good or bad. It simply is. You do not need to read a sacred text to see it. You need only to open your eyes. Look at your own body. It is a perfect river of anicca. From the moment of your conception, it has been in a state of ceaseless change. Cells are dividing and dying. Hair is growing. Skin is renewing. The face you see in the mirror today is not the same face that was there 10 years ago, nor is it the same face that will be there in 10 years' time. We see this slow change as aging, and our culture often frames this as a tragedy to be fought with creams and procedures. But it is simply life itself, expressing its fluid, unfixed nature. Look outside your window. The weather is a constant display of impermanence. The sun gives way to clouds. The clouds bring rain, the rain stops, and the wind blows. Even the mightiest mountains, which seem to be symbols of permanence, are being slowly sculpted by wind and water, grain by grain, in a dance of erosion that spans millennia. A mighty oak tree begins as a tiny acorn. It grows, matures, sheds its leaves each year, and will one day fall and decay, becoming soil for new life. The entire universe, from the fleeting life of a mayfly to the slow burn of a distant star, is governed by this single, unwavering law. Everything that arises will pass away. Nothing is static. Everything is a process. The tragedy and the very core of our suffering lies in a simple, painful equation. The reality of the world is anicca, constant change. The core desire of our mind, driven by tanha, is permanence, for things to stay the same. Our suffering is the friction generated between these two opposing forces. It is the stress, the tension, the grief that arises when our deep-seated desire for things to be fixed crashes against the relentless, fluid reality that they are not. We are trying to build a permanent house made of stone, right in the middle of a flowing river. We expend enormous energy trying to anchor its foundations, trying to fight the current, and we are in a constant state of anxiety that the whole structure will be washed away. The struggle is immense, and the outcome is inevitable. The river will always win. The Buddhist path does not suggest we fight harder. It suggests we stop building the house. It suggests we learn to build a raft instead, one that moves with the currents, that is light and flexible, that understands the nature of the water it rests upon. Think of a moment of pure happiness in your life, a perfect vacation, a joyful celebration, a deep and loving conversation. In that moment, tanha, the thirst, immediately arises. It whispers, "This is it. This is what I want. Don't let this end." We try to freeze the moment. We take endless photographs, trying to capture its essence. We replay it in our minds, trying to relive it. But in the very act of clinging, we introduce a subtle anxiety. The fear of the moment ending begins to poison the enjoyment of the moment itself. And when it inevitably does end, because all moments do, we are left with a sense of loss and disappointment. The suffering did not come from the fact that the vacation ended. The suffering came from our demand that it should not. The same is true for our inner world. Our thoughts and emotions are perhaps the most vivid examples of impermanence we can experience. Sit quietly for just 2 minutes and try to hold on to a single thought. It is impossible. The mind, like the sky, is a vast space through which things pass. One moment, a cloud of a happy memory drifts by. We like this cloud, so we try to grab it. "Stay," we plead. The next moment, a dark storm cloud of anger or sadness appears on the horizon. We frantically try to push it away. "Go away. I don't want you here." We spend our lives chasing the white, fluffy clouds and running from the dark, stormy ones. This is the inner battle, the inner friction. The practice of wisdom is to change our identification. It is to realize that we are not the clouds. We are the sky. The sky does not cling to the beautiful clouds, nor does it fear the storm clouds. It remains open, spacious, and allows all of them to arise and pass away in their own time. When we can watch a painful thought or a difficult emotion arise and simply say to ourselves, "Ah, here is anger. I see it. It is a cloud passing through." We are no longer at its mercy. We are not denying it or suppressing it. We are observing its impermanent nature. And in that observation, we discover that no emotional state, no matter how intense, is permanent. It too will change. It too will pass. This understanding is the gateway to immense freedom. There is a beautiful teaching story about a great Zen master who had a particular teacup. It was an exquisite piece, perfectly formed, beautiful to look at and to hold. He loved this teacup, and he would often use it to teach his students. He would hold it up and say, "Look at this cup. I love this cup. It holds my tea. It warms my hands, and its beauty delights my eyes. But I know that this cup is already broken." He enjoyed its presence completely. He cherished it in every moment, but he never for a moment forgot its inherent, fragile nature. He understood that it was made of clay, that it was born from the earth and the fire, and that one day its form would change and it would return to the earth. So, years later, when a student accidentally knocked the cup from a table and it shattered into 100 pieces on the floor, the master was completely calm. The student was mortified, apologizing profusely. The master simply smiled and said, "There is no need to be sorry. The cup has simply returned to its natural state. I have been enjoying it for years on borrowed time, knowing it was already broken." This story holds the key. Accepting anicca does not mean we cannot love, or that we must live in a state of cold detachment. It is the very opposite. It is the secret to loving more deeply and living more fully. When we know the teacup is already broken, we cherish it so much more in this moment. We don't take it for granted. When we know that our loved ones, our health, our very lives are impermanent, we can approach each day with a profound sense of gratitude and presence. We stop deferring our happiness to a future that may never come. We stop taking the simple miracles of the present moment for granted. The acceptance of loss allows for the appreciation of presence. Furthermore, impermanence is the very engine of hope. If things were permanent, our mistakes would be indelible stains. Our grief would be a life sentence. Injustice would be forever fixed. A tyrant would rule for all time. It is because of anicca that healing is possible. A wound can close and become a scar. A broken heart can mend. We can learn from our past and change our future. A forest can regrow after a devastating fire. Change is not our enemy. It is the very possibility of liberation. By truly and deeply contemplating this law of impermanence, we begin to loosen the tight grip of our thirst. We see the utter futility of trying to find lasting security in things that are, by their very nature, in constant flux. We begin to relax our grasp. The frantic energy of clinging starts to subside. We are still in the river, but we are no longer fighting it. We are learning to float. A great sense of lightness and relief begins to dawn. But this leads to an even deeper question. If everything we experience, our body, our thoughts, our feelings, the world around uses an ever-changing flow, then what about the one who is doing the experiencing? What is this I that feels so solid, so continuous, so permanent? If we look for the clinger, what do we find? Is it, too, just another part of the river? We have been standing at the river's edge, watching the ceaseless flow of existence. We have accepted the great truth of anicca, impermanence, seeing that everything in our experience, our bodies, our world, our joys, our cirrhosis, in a constant state of flux. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is permanent. This realization is both sobering and liberating. It loosens the tight grip of our craving, showing us the futility of trying to build a permanent fortress in the middle of a flowing stream. But now, this investigation must turn inwards to the deepest and most personal question of all. As we watch this river of experience flow by, we must ask, who is the watcher? Who is this I that experiences the changing body, the fleeting emotions, the passing thoughts? We with a deep and unshakable certainty that there is a core to our being, an essential me that has been there since childhood and will be there until our last breath. It feels like the one solid thing in a world of change. This feeling of a separate, continuous, and solid self is the very bedrock of our lives. We think of it as the CEO in the headquarters of the mind, making decisions and giving commands. It is the pilot in the cockpit of the body, steering it through the world. It is the protagonist of our own life story, the hero who accumulates experiences, suffers wounds, and strives for a happy ending. This I is what we work so hard to protect, to please, and to promote. When someone insults us, it is this I that feels wounded. When someone praises us, it is this I that feels gratified. Our entire psychological life revolves around the project of making this I secure and happy. But the Buddhist path invites us to do something radical. It invites us not to simply believe in this self, but to go looking for it. Like a diligent scientist who refuses to accept anything on faith, we are asked to turn the lens of our awareness inward and conduct an investigation. When you say I, what are you actually referring to? Let's search for this solid, unchanging self you believe you are. The ancient teachers provided a beautifully systematic way to conduct this search. They suggested that what we call a self is actually a bundle of 5 processes, 5 flowing streams of experience that we have mistaken for a solid entity. These are known as the 5 aggregates, or skandhas. Let's unpack this bundle, piece by piece, and see if we can find a permanent self hiding anywhere inside. First, there is the aggregate of form. This is your physical body. Is your body your true self? It seems like a good candidate. It's tangible. It's here. But as we have already seen, your body is a perfect demonstration of impermanence. It is changing in every single moment. The body you have today is not the same body you had 7 years ago. Most of its cells have been replaced. Furthermore, your body is composed entirely of non-you elements. The water in your cells was once in a cloud. The carbon in your bones was once in the food you ate. You are borrowing these elements from the earth and the sky. If you lose a limb, are you less of a self? Of course not. Your body is a precious vehicle, a temporary vessel. But to locate a permanent, unchanging I within its ever-changing cells is impossible. The body is something you have, not something you are. So, if the self is not the body, perhaps it is our feelings. This is the second aggregate. This includes the entire spectrum of our sensations, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. When you feel a moment of joy, you might think, I am happy. When you feel pain, you think, I am sad. But are you your feelings? Think of how quickly they change. A moment of joy can be replaced by a moment of irritation in a heartbeat. A feeling of contentment can be swept away by a sudden wave of anxiety. Feelings are like the weather passing through the landscape of our awareness. They are completely dependent on conditions. You hear good news, and a pleasant feeling arises. You stub your toe, and an unpleasant feeling arises. They are fleeting, unreliable, and constantly in motion. They are visitors, not the owner of the house. You cannot build a stable identity on something so fickle. So, you are not your feelings. Let's move to the third aggregate, perception. This is the faculty of the mind that recognizes, identifies, and labels our experience. You see a shape, and your perception labels it tree. You hear a sound, and your perception labels it car horn. It is the process of making sense of raw data. Is this perception yourself? Again, look closely. Your perceptions are deeply conditioned by your past, your culture, your language, your mood. Two people can witness the exact same event and have wildly different perceptions of what happened. Your perception of a piece of modern art might be confusing, while an art historian's perception is brilliant. Perceptions are not objective truths. They are interpretations. They are learned habits of the mind. They too are not a solid, independent core. You are not your perceptions. Perhaps the self lies in the fourth aggregate, mental formations. This is a broad category that includes all of our habits, biases, opinions, beliefs, intentions, and psychological tendencies. This is what we usually think of as our personality. It's our love of a certain kind of music, our political views, our tendency to be optimistic or pessimistic. This seems to be getting closer to a me. But are these things a permanent self? All of our opinions were learned. All of our habits were conditioned over time. They can, and do, change. You may have hated a certain food as a child that you now love. You may have held strong beliefs in the past that you now see as misguided. These mental formations are just patterns of activity, processes that have been grooved into our minds through repetition. They are not a fixed essence. They are more like the software running on the hardware, not the computer itself. So, you are not your personality. This leaves us with one final candidate for the self, the fifth aggregate, consciousness. This is the raw faculty of knowing, the simple awareness of seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and thinking. Surely, this awareness must be the real me, the watcher behind it all. But again, the investigation asks us to look more deeply. Is there ever just pure, disembodied consciousness? Or is consciousness always consciousness of something? There is the consciousness of seeing, which depends on the eyes and a visible object. There is the consciousness of hearing, which depends on the ears and a sound. There is the consciousness of thinking, which depends on the brain and a thought. Consciousness does not exist as an independent entity. It arises in dependence on conditions. It is like a light that illuminates. The light itself is not a thing. It only exists when a power source connects to a bulb. Consciousness flickers in and out of existence with every moment of experience. It is not a continuous, abiding soul, but a dynamic, ever-arising process. So, we have unpacked the entire bundle of what we call a self, and nowhere within it, not in the body, the feelings, the perceptions, the personality, or the awareness itself, can we find a separate, permanent, unchanging core. The shocking and liberating conclusion is that there is no I to be found. This truth is called anatta, often translated as no self or not self. To clarify this profound idea, there is a famous story from an ancient text. A wise sage named Nagasena was approached by King Milinda. The king, a sharp debater, asked, "What is your name?" The sage replied, "I am known as Nagasena, but Nagasena is just a designation, a convenient name. There is no permanent person to be found here." The king was incredulous. He asked, "If there is no person, who is it that wears these robes? Who eats and sleeps? Who meditates?" Nagasena then asked the king about the chariot he had arrived in. "Your Majesty, did you walk here or come by chariot?" "I came by chariot," said the king. "Then," said Nagasena, "please define for me what a chariot is. Is it the wheels, the axle, the frame, the reins?" The king had to admit that the chariot was none of these individual parts. Nagasena continued, "Is the chariot, then, all of these parts put together?" The king agreed. But, Nagasena concluded, the word chariot is just a convenient name we give to this collection of parts. There is no separate, independent chariot soul that exists apart from its components. In the same way, Nagasena is just a convenient name for the collection of the 5 aggregates. The self is a convention, not an ultimate reality. This is the heart of anatta. It does not mean that you do not exist. You are here, reading these words, thinking these thoughts. It means that you exist not as a solid noun, but as a dynamic verb. You are not a thing, you are a process. You are not a being, you are a becoming. You are like a wave in the ocean. A wave is a real event, but it has no separate, independent self. It is simply a temporary form that the water takes, arising from countless conditions like the wind and the seabed. It rises, it travels, and it falls, seamlessly connected to the entire ocean. Understanding this is the key to unlocking true freedom. When we believe in a solid self, we spend our lives in a state of defense. We are constantly trying to protect this fragile identity from harm and bolster it with praise. But if we see that there is no fixed target for an insult to land on, its sting diminishes. If we see there is no permanent ego to be puffed up by praise, we are less likely to become arrogant. When the hard shell of the I begins to soften, a natural compassion emerges. The illusion of a stark separation between me and you begins to dissolve. We see that your suffering and my suffering arise from the same causes. Your desire for happiness is the same as my desire for happiness. We are all interconnected waves in the same ocean of existence. This insight is the ultimate foundation for love and empathy. It frees us from the prison of our own small story and opens us up to the vast, interconnected reality of life. We have now seen that all of our experience is impermanent, and that the one who experiences is also not a fixed, solid entity. With these powerful insights, we are ready to move from intellectual understanding to direct experience. We need a practical tool, an art of living, that allows us to see anicca and anatta not as theories, but as living truths in every moment. We need an anchor that can hold us steady in the river, allowing us to watch the flow without being swept away. That anchor is called mindfulness. We have journeyed into some of the deepest territories of the mind. We have confronted the truth of impermanence, realizing that all of life is a ceaseless flow. We have investigated the nature of our own self, only to find that it too is not a solid thing, but a dynamic, ever-changing process. These insights of anicca and anatta are profound. They can feel vast, abstract, perhaps even unsettling. The logical, human question that arises is, this is a beautiful philosophy, but how do I make it real in my life? How can I move from intellectually understanding these ideas to directly experiencing them? How can I learn to float in this river instead of drowning in it? The answer, the practical tool that bridges the gap between philosophy and lived reality, is both incredibly simple and deeply powerful. It is the practice of sati, or mindfulness. Mindfulness is a word that has become very popular, and because of that, its meaning is often diluted. We might think it is simply about relaxation, about clearing the mind, or about achieving a blissful state. But in its true essence, mindfulness is a form of mental training. It is the art of paying attention, on purpose, in the present moment, without judgment. Let's break that down. Paying attention means consciously directing our awareness. On purpose means we are doing it intentionally. It's not accidental. In the present moment is the crucial part. Our attention is right here, right now, not lost in the past or the future. And without judgment means we observe our experience with a gentle, open, and accepting attitude, rather than with the harsh voice of our inner critic. To understand what mindfulness is, it is helpful to first look at its opposite, mindlessness. This is our default state, the autopilot mode, in which we spend most of our lives. Have you ever driven a familiar route, only to arrive at your destination with no real memory of the journey? That is mindlessness. Have you ever eaten an entire meal while scrolling on your phone or watching television and then looked down at your empty plate, barely remembering the taste or texture of the food? That is mindlessness. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone you care about, and while they are speaking, your mind is a million miles away, planning your day, or, more commonly, formulating what you are going to say next instead of truly listening? That is mindlessness. In this state, we are not truly living our lives. We are ghosts in our own story, our bodies performing actions, while our minds are lost in the labyrinth of thought. Mindfulness is the simple, radical act of showing up for our own lives. So how do we practice this? How do we train a mind that has been conditioned for distraction its entire life? We start by choosing an anchor. An anchor for a boat prevents it from being swept away by the winds and the currents. An anchor for the mind does the same thing. And the most reliable, most accessible anchor we have is our own breath. Your breath is always with you. It is a constant, rhythmic process that happens right now, in this moment. You cannot take a breath in the past. You cannot take a breath in the future. Your breath is always and only in the present. It is the perfect tool for tethering our wandering attention. The instruction is simple. You do not need to change your breath, control it, or force it to be deep or slow. The invitation is simply to feel it. Find a comfortable place to sit. Close your eyes if you wish, and bring your attention to the physical sensations of breathing. You might notice the feeling of the air as it enters your nostrils, slightly cool on the way in, slightly warm on the way out. Or you might rest your attention on the gentle rise and fall of your chest or your abdomen. That is all. Your only job is to feel the raw physical sensations of this one breath, and then the next. Now, within a few seconds, something will inevitably happen. Your mind will wander, a thought will arise, a sound will distract you, a memory will pop up. The monkey mind will grab the reins and swing off to another branch. This is the most important moment of the practice. The moment your mind wanders is not a failure. It is not a mistake. It is an opportunity. The real practice of mindfulness begins the moment you notice that your mind has wandered. In that instant of noticing, you have just woken up from mindlessness. You are, for that split second, mindful. And what do you do then? With no judgment, no frustration, no sigh of disappointment, you gently, kindly, and patiently guide your attention back to the anchor of the breath. That's it. You breathe in. You breathe out. The mind wanders. You notice. You gently return. Over and over and over again. Each time you do this, you are strengthening the muscle of your attention. You are carving a new neural pathway in your brain. You are training yourself to come home. The profound benefit of this practice emerges in our daily lives, in the space it creates between stimulus and response. Ordinarily, our lives are a chain of automatic reactions. Someone cuts you off in traffic, stimulus, and anger immediately erupts. Response: you receive a critical email stimulus, and a wave of anxiety instantly washes over you. Response: there is no space, no freedom. We are puppets pulled by the strings of our conditioning. Mindfulness cuts those strings. As you become more practiced at staying present, When a stimulus occurs, you don't get swept away by it instantly. An anxious thought arises. Instead of immediately identifying with it and spiraling into worry, the mindful mind can observe it. Ah, there is the thought of anxiety. I feel a tightness in my stomach. My heart is beating faster. In this moment of clear seeing, a space has opened up, a pause. And in that pause lies your power. In that pause, you have freedom. You can choose to believe the anxious thought, or you can choose to see it as just a thought, a passing cloud. You can choose to react with anger, or you can choose to take a breath and respond with calm. This is how we move from being creatures of habit to becoming the conscious creators of our own lives. This practice is not confined to sitting on a cushion. You can bring mindfulness into any activity. You can practice mindful eating. Take a single strawberry. Before you eat it, look at it as if you have never seen one before. Notice its vibrant color, its shape, the tiny seeds on its surface. Smell it, feel its texture. Then, take a bite and chew slowly, noticing the explosion of flavor, the sweetness, the tartness. Experience the entire act of eating with your full attention. You will find that one mindfully eaten strawberry is more satisfying than a whole carton eaten mindlessly. You can practice mindful walking, feeling the contact of your feet on the earth with each step. You can practice mindful listening, offering the gift of your complete, undivided presence to another human being. There is a powerful Zen story that illustrates this perfectly. A man is walking in the mountains when he is suddenly confronted by a ferocious tiger. He turns and runs, with the tiger in hot pursuit. He comes to the edge of a great cliff. With no other choice, he grabs hold of a thick vine and swings himself down over the edge. As he hangs there, he looks up and sees the snarling tiger at the top of the cliff. He looks down, and to his horror, he sees another tiger on the ground below, waiting for him to fall. His situation is utterly hopeless. As he hangs there, suspended between two certain deaths, he notices two mice, one white and one black, have come out of a crevice and are beginning to gnaw on the vine he is holding. He knows his time is short, and just then, out of the corner of his eye, he sees a single, wild strawberry growing from the cliff face, glistening in the sun. He reaches out, plucks it, and puts it in his mouth. The story ends with a single line. How sweet it tasted. This is the fruit of mindfulness. The tigers, above and below, are the unavoidable realities of our existence, the great sufferings and the certainty of death. The mice, black and white, are day and night, the relentless, unstoppable passage of time that is eating away at our life. We all hang on this fragile vine. We cannot escape the tigers or the mice. But even in this precarious situation, there is the strawberry. The strawberry is this present moment. It is the simple sweetness of being alive right now. Most of us are so busy worrying about the tiger above, the past, and the tiger below, the future, that we never even notice the strawberry. We miss our lives. Mindfulness is the practice of tasting the strawberry. It is the ability to find the sweetness of the present moment, no matter how difficult our circumstances may be. It is the anchor in the storm, the calm harbor in the raging sea. It is the simple, direct way to experience the truths of anicca and anatta for ourselves, seeing thoughts and feelings and sensations arise and pass away, moment by moment. Once we have learned to cultivate this stable presence, this ability to be home in the now, we are ready to deepen our investigation. We can now create a more formal, dedicated space to explore the landscape of our inner world. This dedicated practice is the art of meditation. In our journey so far, we have learned the art of mindfulness, the practice of bringing a gentle, non-judgmental awareness to our moment-to-moment experience. We have learned to use the breath as a faithful anchor, a home base to return to amidst the chaos of our lives. Mindfulness is the way we carry this awareness with us throughout the day, while walking, eating, or listening. Now, we will explore the formal training ground for this skill, the dedicated workout for the mind. This is the ancient practice of meditation. The word itself can be intimidating, conjuring images of stern-faced masters in remote monasteries, or of a struggle to achieve some magical, thought-free state. It is time to let these images go. Meditation, at its heart, is something far simpler, more accessible, and more compassionate. It is the art of stillness. It is the courageous and kind act of sitting down and getting to know, perhaps for the first time, the true nature of our own mind. The single greatest misunderstanding about meditation, the one that causes most people to give up in frustration, is the belief that its goal is to stop thinking. We sit down, close our eyes, and are immediately confronted with the relentless chatter of the monkey mind. It plans dinner, it rehearses an argument, it worries about finances, it replays a song. We think, I am failing at this. I can't make my mind quiet, and so we stop. But trying to stop your mind from thinking is like trying to command your heart to stop beating. The nature of the mind is to produce thoughts. The purpose of meditation is not to stop the thoughts, but to fundamentally change your relationship with them. It is to learn to sit in the middle of the marketplace of the mind without getting drawn into every transaction. It is to see the thoughts, to acknowledge them, and to let them pass by without being swept away. So let us begin. The first step is simply to set the stage. Find a place where you can be relatively undisturbed for a short period of time. It does not need to be a special room. A quiet corner is enough. It is also helpful to choose a consistent time, perhaps in the morning before the day's demands begin. You can sit on a cushion on the floor, or you can sit on a chair. The key is the posture. Your posture is not just a physical position. It is the embodiment of the attitude you are bringing to the practice. Sit with your spine upright, but not stiff. Imagine a string gently pulling the crown of your head towards the sky. This creates a sense of dignity and alertness. Let your shoulders relax and fall away from your ears. Rest your hands in your lap, one on top of the other, or simply on your thighs. Tuck your chin slightly so the back of your neck is long. Your body should feel both stable and at ease. A posture of wakeful presence. Now, you can gently close your eyes or leave them slightly open with a soft, unfocused gaze towards the floor. Begin by taking 2 or 3 deeper, more intentional breaths. Breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. Feel this as a moment of transition, a signal to your body and mind that you are shifting from the mode of doing to the mode of simply being. Then, allow your breath to return to its natural, effortless rhythm. Do not try to control it in any way. And now, gently rest your attention on the physical sensations of your breathing. Choose one spot to be your home base. It could be the tip of your nostrils, feeling the cool air enter and the warm air leave. Or it could be your abdomen, feeling the gentle rise with the in-breath and the subtle fall with the out-breath. Your task is beautifully simple. Just feel the sensations of this one breath, and now this one, and now this one. There is nowhere to go, nothing to achieve, just this breath. And now, the inevitable will happen. A thought will arise. I wonder how long I've been sitting here. A sound will appear. Is that a dog barking? A plan will form. I need to remember to buy milk after this. The mind will wander. This is not a mistake. This is not a failure. This is what minds do. The moment you notice that your attention is no longer on the breath is the golden moment of the practice. In that instant, you have woken up with the kindness you might show to a small puppy that has wandered off. You simply acknowledge where the mind has gone. Thinking, and then you gently, without any scolding, guide your attention back to the anchor, back to the feeling of the breath. You will have to do this 100 times in a 10-minute session. That is the practice. The practice is not staying on the breath. The practice is the gentle, patient, compassionate act of returning over and over again. Each time you return, you are making a choice for presence over distraction. You are exercising the muscle of awareness. As you sit, you may encounter other common experiences, often called hindrances. You might feel a physical itch or an ache in your back. Your first instinct is to immediately react, to scratch the itch, to shift your position. The invitation of meditation is to first, just for a moment, observe the sensation with curiosity. What does the itch actually feel like? Is it hot? Is it tingly? Where does it begin and end? Often, by simply observing a sensation without judgment, its power over you diminishes. If you must move, then move with conscious intention, and then resettle yourself in the practice. Another common visitor is sleepiness. As you finally slow down, the mind can become dull and drowsy. If this happens, you can check your posture, making sure your spine is upright. You can open your eyes. You can even focus on the breath with a little more crispness. See the drowsiness not as an enemy to be fought, but simply as a mental state to be observed. Sleepiness is present. The opposite can also happen, a state of restlessness and agitation. Your legs want to twitch. Your mind feels like it is racing at 1,000 miles per hour. This is the monkey mind, in a frenzy. The instruction remains the same. Acknowledge it without judgment. Restlessness is here. Feel the frantic energy in your body and mind, and with heroic patience, gently return to the breath, even if it is only for a single second, before the mind darts away again. The goal is not to defeat the restlessness, but to learn to be present and aware even while it is here. There is a simple and profound analogy for this entire process. Imagine you have a glass of water filled with mud that has been thoroughly stirred up. The water is murky, opaque. This is our mind, clouded and agitated by the constant stirring of our daily lives. If you wanted to make the water clear, what would you do? If you stick your hand in the glass and try to force the mud to the bottom, you will only create more turmoil, more cloudiness. This is what we do when we fight our thoughts, when we try to force ourselves to be calm. The solution is exquisitely simple. You place the glass on a stable surface and you let it be. You do nothing. And a natural law, the law of gravity, takes over. The particles of mud, being heavier than the water, will slowly, on their own, settle to the bottom. In time, the water will become perfectly clear, not because you did anything to it, but because you allowed it to be still. Meditation is the act of placing the glass of our mind on a stable surface. The still posture is the stable surface. The non-judgmental observation is the act of letting it be. We don't have to force the mud of our thoughts and emotions to settle. By creating the right conditions of stillness and acceptance, they settle all by themselves. And what emerges from this is not a forced calm, but a natural, inherent clarity that was there all along, just obscured by the mud. This formal sitting practice becomes our personal laboratory for observing the great truths of existence in real time. As you sit, you witness anicca, impermanence. With every breath, you see thoughts arise from nowhere, exist for a moment, and vanish. You see feelings well up and then fade away. You experience directly that there is nothing solid to hold on to. You also see dukkha, the subtle unsatisfactoriness of the mind. You feel the pull of craving for the session to be over, the aversion to a painful knee, the restlessness of a bored mind. You are watching the very mechanism of suffering at work. And finally, you witness anatta, no self. You see that thoughts think themselves. They appear in your consciousness without your conscious intention or permission. This simple observation begins to unravel the powerful illusion that there is a single, solid I who is in control of everything. Meditation is not a task to be checked off a list. It is an act of profound kindness and intimacy with yourself. It is a radical act of stopping all the doing, all the striving, all the improving, and simply allowing yourself to be. As we become more familiar with this inner landscape through our formal practice, we become much more adept at navigating our lives. We begin to notice our emotional patterns more quickly. We see our reactions as they arise. This new clarity brings us to the next crucial stage of our journey, learning how to skillfully and compassionately work with the powerful emotions that this practice brings to the surface. Through the quiet stillness of meditation, we begin to open a door to our inner world. We sit, we watch, and we allow the contents of our mind to reveal themselves. At first, we might notice the endless stream of thoughts, the plans, the memories, the chatter. But as we sit for longer, something more powerful begins to surface. We come face to face with our emotions, not just fleeting moods, but the deep, powerful currents of feeling that shape our lives. Waves of anger, tremors of fear, oceans of sadness, pangs of jealousy. In our normal mindless state, we have two primary strategies for dealing with these powerful energies. Both are born of fear, and both, ultimately, fail us. The first strategy is suppression. When a difficult emotion arises, we are taught to be strong, to push it down, to put on a brave face. We tell ourselves, "I shouldn't feel this way," and we try to bury the feeling under a mountain of distractions and duties. We numb ourselves with entertainment. We lose ourselves in work. We pretend that everything is fine. But suppressed emotion does not disappear. It is energy, and that energy must go somewhere. It is like trying to hold a large beach ball underwater. It takes a constant and exhausting effort to keep it down, and the moment our vigilance slips, it erupts to the surface with even greater, often uncontrollable, force. This suppressed energy can leak out sideways as chronic anxiety, a constant irritability, a feeling of deep depression, or even as physical ailments in the body. We think we are controlling the emotion, but in reality, it is controlling us from the shadows. The second strategy is the opposite: uncontrolled expression. When a wave of anger arises, we become the wave. We identify with it completely. Our face flushes, our voice rises, and we allow the raw energy of the anger to dictate our words and actions. We shout, we blame, we say things we later regret. We become a puppet, and the emotion is the puppeteer. While this might provide a momentary sense of release, it almost always creates more suffering for ourselves and for those around us. It damages relationships, deepens conflict, and leaves a residue of guilt and shame. In this strategy, we are not controlling the emotion, we are completely controlled by it. Both of these strategies are suppression and indulgence here, rooted in a deep fear of the emotion itself. We are terrified of the raw, physical, and seemingly overwhelming power of our own feelings. But the path of wisdom offers a third way. It is not a way of fighting or of surrendering, but a way of embracing. It is the path of meeting our emotions with mindful awareness, of learning to be with them without being consumed by them. It is the art of embracing the clouds. This practice can be understood in a few simple, compassionate steps. The first step is to simply recognize what is happening. As you sit in meditation, or as you go about your day, you feel a strong emotion begin to stir. The practice is to notice it at its inception. Ah, something is here. Instead of immediately reacting, you simply acknowledge its presence. You see it. This simple act of seeing is revolutionary. It immediately creates a tiny space between you and the emotion. In that space, you are no longer the anger. You are the one who is aware of the anger. You are no longer the fear. You are the one who is noticing the fear. This is the beginning of freedom. The second step is to gently name it. Silently, in your own mind, you can label the feeling. Anger, anger, or this is sadness, or fear is present. This is not an act of cold analysis. It is an act of validation. It is like seeing a distressed child and saying, "I see you are upset." Naming the emotion has a remarkable effect. It tends to calm the nervous system and shifts the brain's activity from the reactive, primal centers to the more thoughtful, observing cortex. You are acknowledging the reality of the feeling without endorsing the story that comes with it. You are simply calling it by its name. The third, and perhaps most transformative step, is to investigate the emotion in your body. Emotions are not just abstract concepts. They are tangible, physical energies. Ask yourself, with genuine curiosity, where do I feel this in my body? Take your attention out of the swirling stories in your head and drop it down into the landscape of your physical self. You might discover that your anger feels like a hot, burning sensation in your chest and a tightness in your jaw. Your fear might be a cold, clenched knot in the pit of your stomach and a hollowness in your limbs. Your sadness might feel like a profound heaviness in your shoulders and a lump in your throat. The invitation is to bring a kind, gentle awareness directly to these physical sensations. Do not try to make them go away. Do not judge them as bad. Simply breathe with them. Imagine your breath gently moving into and around the area of tightness or heat. This act of bringing mindful, embodied presence to your feelings is a way of metabolizing their raw energy. You are allowing the emotion to be felt, to be honored, and to move through you, rather than getting stuck inside you. This leads to the fourth and final understanding: non-identification. This is where we return to the beautiful metaphor of the sky and the clouds. Your fundamental nature, your core awareness, is like a vast, open, boundless sky. It is inherently peaceful, clear, and spacious. Your emotions are like the weather. They are clouds that drift through the sky of your awareness. Sometimes the clouds are light, white, and fluffy, like moments of joy and contentment. Sometimes they are dark, heavy, and full of thunder and lightning, like moments of rage or grief. But no cloud, no matter how immense or terrifying, can ever truly stain or harm the sky. The sky's nature is to unconditionally allow all weather to pass through it. The cloud is not the sky. Your practice is to learn to identify with the sky, not with the weather. Instead of thinking, "I am angry," you can learn to see, "A cloud of anger is passing through the sky of my mind." The anger is an event, a temporary visitor. It is not who you are. There is a classic Zen story that illustrates the consequence of not letting emotions pass through. Two monks, one senior and one junior, were traveling together. They came to a river where the current was strong. A young woman stood at the bank, hesitating, afraid to cross. Seeing her plight, the senior monk walked over, lifted her into his arms, carried her across the swirling water, and set her down gently on the other side. He then bowed and continued on his journey. The junior monk was speechless, utterly scandalized. Their monastic code strictly forbade them from touching a woman. For the next several hours, he walked behind his senior, his mind a raging storm of judgment, resentment, and righteous indignation. He replayed the scene over and over, fuming in silence. Finally, miles down the road, he could bear it no longer. He ran to catch up with the senior monk and burst out, "Brother, I cannot stay silent. What you did back there was a serious transgression. Our vows forbid it. How could you touch that woman?" The senior monk looked at him with a calm, compassionate expression. "Brother," he said softly, "I put that woman down by the river hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This is the question we must ask ourselves. We are all like the junior monk. An event happens, an emotion is triggered, and long after the event is over, we are still carrying the anger, the resentment, the grief. We carry these heavy burdens in our minds for hours, days, even years, poisoning our own peace. Learning to work with emotions mindfully is learning how to put the woman down by the river. It is the art of letting go of what is already gone. When we can meet our emotions in this way, we discover they are not our enemies. They are simply messengers, carrying valuable information. Anger might be a message that a personal boundary has been violated. Fear might be a message that we feel unprepared for a situation. Sadness is a message that we have loved something and lost it. By listening to the message with mindfulness, we can respond to life's challenges with wisdom rather than reacting with blind habit. We develop an inner resilience, a quiet confidence that we can handle whatever weather passes through our inner sky. This compassionate embrace of our own heart is the foundation for the next stage of our journey, learning to extend that same embrace outward to all other beings. Having learned to sit with the storm clouds of our own difficult emotions, bearing witness to our anger, fear, and sadness with a tender, mindful awareness, we discover a new capacity within ourselves. We find that the heart, when met with kindness, begins to soften. The rigid walls we built around it start to become more permeable. This inner work, this courageous act of embracing our own humanity, naturally prepares us for the next stage of the journey, allowing the warmth we have cultivated for ourselves to radiate outward. We move from the inner sky to the shared atmosphere that connects us all. This is the practice of cultivating a boundless heart, the energy of metta, loving kindness, and karuna, compassion. These are not just sentimental feelings or passive states. In the Buddhist understanding, they are active, intentional, and trainable qualities of the heart. They are skills we can develop through practice, just like strengthening a muscle. Metta, or loving kindness, is the sincere and unconditional wish for all beings to be happy. It is the baseline of goodwill, a gentle warmth that we can learn to extend to ourselves and others. Karuna, or compassion, is its natural counterpart. It is the heart's response to the presence of suffering. When loving kindness encounters pain, it transforms into compassion, the active wish for that pain to be eased. It is the trembling of the heart in the face of suffering, coupled with the aspiration to help. It is crucial to distinguish true compassion from its distant cousin, pity. Pity looks down from above. It says, "Oh, you poor thing, how terrible your situation is. I am so glad it is not me." Pity creates distance. It reinforces the ego's sense of separation and superiority. Compassion, on the other hand, meets another on the same level. It arises from the profound recognition of our shared experience. It says, "I know the feeling of pain. I have felt suffering in my own heart. Because we share this common ground of vulnerability, I wish for your suffering to end. Pity creates a barrier. Compassion dissolves it. It is the recognition that, as the saying goes, we are all just walking each other home. The way we cultivate this open heart is through a gentle, systematic practice, a form of meditation known as metta or loving-kindness meditation. It does not demand that you feel a certain way. It simply asks that you plant the seeds of goodwill by repeating certain phrases of intention. We begin this practice in the place where it is often most difficult and most necessary. The first stage is to offer loving kindness to yourself. We often find it easy to wish others well, but feel awkward or even undeserving when we direct that same kindness inward. But you cannot pour water from an empty cup. To have a sustainable source of love and compassion for others, we must first learn to nourish ourselves. So, finding a comfortable posture, you can close your eyes and bring your awareness to your heart space. Silently, gently, begin to repeat phrases of well-wishing for yourself. The traditional phrases are, may I be safe, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease. As you repeat them, don't struggle to feel anything in particular. Your only task is to offer the intention. You are planting seeds in the soil of your own heart. Some days the ground will feel fertile and warm. Other days it will feel barren and cold. It does not matter. You just continue to plant the seeds. May I be safe. May I be happy. Once you have spent some time offering this kindness to yourself, the second stage is to bring to mind a benefactor or a dear friend. Think of someone for whom you have easy, uncomplicated feelings of love and appreciation. It could be a mentor, a family member, a close friend, or even a beloved pet. Picture them in your mind's eye, and now extend the same phrases of goodwill to them. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Notice how the energy feels as you extend it to another. Feel the warmth of your genuine wish for their well-being. The third stage is to expand the circle of care to include a neutral person. Bring to mind someone you see in your daily life, but have no strong feelings about one way or the other. It might be the cashier at the grocery store, the person who delivers your mail, or someone you pass on your commute. You may not even know their name. Hold their image in your mind, see them simply as a fellow human being, and offer them the same wishes. May you be safe. May you be happy. This is a powerful step. It helps us break down the walls of indifference we build around ourselves. It acknowledges the humanity and the silent struggles of the strangers we share the world with. It is a recognition that they too, just like us, wish to be happy. The fourth stage is the most challenging, and it should be approached with great care. You bring to mind a difficult person. This is someone with whom you have a history of conflict, frustration, or hurt. It is wise to start with someone only mildly difficult, not the greatest enemy of your life. The purpose here is not to condone their harmful actions or to force a false reconciliation. The purpose is a profound act of healing for yourself. You recognize that this person's harmful actions almost certainly spring from their own deep suffering, their own confusion, their own thirst. From this place of understanding, you try to offer them the phrases, may you be free from your suffering. May you find true happiness. This practice can feel impossible at first, but in doing it, you are releasing yourself from the prison of your own resentment. You are choosing to stop drinking the poison of hatred that only harms you. Finally, in the fifth stage, you let your awareness expand in all directions. You extend these wishes of loving kindness and compassion to all beings, without exception. To your friends, your enemies, the neutral people, to people in your city, your country, to people on the other side of the world, to animals, to insects, to all living things. May all beings everywhere be safe. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings live with ease. You allow your heart to become boundless, a radiant sun of unconditional goodwill, shining on everyone and everything without discrimination. This practice is built on one simple, foundational insight. At the deepest level, every single living creature shares the same fundamental wish. We all want to be happy, and we all want to be free from suffering. From the smallest insect to the most powerful world leader, this is the engine that drives us. When we can see this common ground, the illusion of our separation begins to crumble. The story of me versus them loses its power. We see ourselves in the eyes of the other. We understand that we are all in this together. There is a moving story from the life of the Buddha that embodies this radical compassion. One day, as he and his chief attendant Ananda were walking through the monastery grounds, they smelled a terrible stench coming from one of the huts. Inside, they found a monk lying alone in his own filth. He was suffering from a severe case of dysentery and was covered in painful, oozing sores. The other monks, out of disgust and fear of contagion, had completely abandoned him. He was left to die alone. Seeing this, the Buddha did not hesitate. He instructed Ananda to go and fetch hot water. As Ananda did so, the Buddha himself, the enlightened one, knelt down beside the sick and forsaken monk. With his own hands, he began to gently wash the man's body, cleaning his sores and carefully changing his soiled robes. He tended to him with the utmost care and tenderness. When the other monks saw what was happening, they gathered in astonishment. The Buddha looked at them and delivered a timeless teaching. He said, "Monks, you have no mother or father here to care for you. If you do not care for one another, who will? Whoever would tend to me should tend to the sick." This is karuna in action. It does not turn away from what is difficult, messy, or unpleasant. It sees the suffering being behind the illness, behind the dirt, behind the anger. It understands that in caring for the most vulnerable among us, we are caring for the highest part of ourselves. It is the healing water that soothes the fires of aversion, fear, and separation. It is the ultimate expression of our interconnectedness. Cultivating this boundless heart is not a heavy duty. It is a source of profound joy and a release from the lonely prison of the self. As we practice radiating this kindness outward, it often illuminates the one place where our love is the most conditional, the most hesitant. As we extend compassion to friends, strangers, and even enemies, we may find that the hardest person to include in that circle of unconditional care is ourself. This humbling realization brings us to the next essential step of our inner journey, the focused and often challenging practice of self-compassion. We have journeyed outward with our hearts, practicing the art of extending loving kindness and compassion to friends, to strangers, and even to those with whom we have difficulty. In doing so, we learn to see the shared humanity that connects us all. But this very practice of radiating goodwill outward often serves as a mirror, reflecting back to us the one area where our kindness is the most hesitant, the most conditional, the most scarce. For so many of us, the hardest person in the world to love, the last person we include in our circle of compassion, is ourself. We can be a fountain of kindness for others and a desert of harshness for our own heart. This journey inward to the practice of self-compassion is therefore not an act of selfishness, but the most essential and often the most challenging stage of our healing. For most of our lives, we have lived with a constant companion, a voice in our head that is relentlessly critical. It is the inner critic, It is our internal judge, jury, and executioner. This is the voice that fixates on our flaws, magnifies our mistakes, and constantly compares us to others, always finding us lacking. When we succeed, it tells us it wasn't good enough, or that we were just lucky. When we fail, it says, "I told you so. You are a failure." This voice speaks to us with a tone of contempt and disappointment that we would never, ever tolerate from another human being. If a friend spoke to us the way our inner critic does, we would end that friendship immediately. And yet, we allow this cruel voice to occupy the most intimate space of our being, to narrate our lives, and to dictate our sense of self-worth. This constant, low-grade inner warfare is a primary source of our anxiety, our depression, and our feeling of being fundamentally not good enough. Self-compassion is the radical act of calling a truce in this inner war. It is learning to treat ourselves with the same kindness, care, and understanding that we would offer to a dear friend who is suffering. It is not a passive state, but an active choice to be an ally to ourselves rather than an enemy. To understand what self-compassion truly is, it is helpful to first clear away the misconceptions. Self-compassion is not self-pity. Self-pity gets lost in the drama of our own story, isolating us from the world. It says, "Poor me, my problems are the worst." This feeling separates us. Self-compassion, on the other hand, connects us. It recognizes that suffering and imperfection are not my personal failing, but are part of the shared human experience. It says, "This is really difficult right now, and many people have felt this same pain." This perspective of common humanity is a doorway out of isolation. Self-compassion is also not self-indulgence. Self-indulgence is often about avoiding pain through short-term pleasure-seeking. It's about eating the entire tub of ice cream to numb a feeling of sadness. Self-compassion is about genuine, long-term well-being. A self-compassionate response to sadness might be to pause, acknowledge the feeling with kindness, perhaps have a cup of tea, and ask, "What do I truly need right now?" Sometimes, what we truly need is not indulgence, but the courage to do something difficult, like apologize for a mistake or set a healthy boundary. Self-compassion is about providing ourselves with what is genuinely caring, not just what is momentarily pleasant. Finally, self-compassion is not weakness or a way of making excuses for bad behavior. In fact, it is a source of immense strength and resilience. The motivation that comes from the inner critic is based on fear. It is brittle and often leads to burnout or rebellion. Motivation that comes from self-compassion is based on a sincere desire to be happy and healthy. It creates a safe, inner environment where we can look at our mistakes honestly, without shame, and learn from them. It is from this place of safety and care, not fear and criticism, that true, lasting change and growth can occur. So how do we practice this? How do we begin to cultivate this new, kinder relationship with ourselves? One of the most powerful and practical methods is to actively treat yourself as you would treat a friend. The next time you feel you have failed, or when you are hurting, pause for a moment. Imagine a close, dear friend came to you and told you they were going through the exact same situation. Think about it specifically. What would you say to them? What would your tone of voice be? Would it be harsh and critical, or would it be warm, gentle, and understanding? You would likely offer them words of comfort, perspective, and unconditional support. Now, try to turn that same voice inward. Offer those same words, with that same tone, to yourself. It will feel strange at first, like learning a new language, but it is the language your heart has been longing to hear. Another simple practice involves the power of soothing touch. The body's nervous system has a powerful response to physical gestures of care. When you are feeling overwhelmed by self-criticism or pain, you can try placing a hand gently over your heart. Or you can give yourself a gentle hug, wrapping your arms around your shoulders. These simple acts can release oxytocin, the same hormone that promotes bonding and feelings of safety, and can help to calm your entire system. It is a direct, non-verbal way of saying, "I am here for you." You can also create a self-compassion mantra for difficult moments. The formula is simple. First, a mindful acknowledgement of the pain. This is a moment of suffering. Second, a reminder of common humanity. Suffering is a part of life. Other people feel this way too. Third, an offering of kindness. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion that I need. Repeating these phrases can be a lifeline in a storm of negative self-talk, anchoring you in a wiser, more caring perspective. The Buddha himself spoke directly to the profound importance of this inner friendship. In one of the ancient texts, a king tells the Buddha that after much reflection, he has realized there is no one in the world he holds dearer than himself. The Buddha agrees and affirms this realization with a powerful teaching. He says, "Searching the whole wide world with your thoughts, you'll find no one dearer than yourself." In the same way, others hold themselves most dear, and so, one who loves themselves should not harm others. This is often misinterpreted as a call to selfish egoism, but its wisdom is far deeper. It is a pragmatic acknowledgement of our reality. Our relationship with ourselves is the central axis of our life. It is the one constant from our first breath to our last. To harm this self with endless criticism, judgment, and hatred is an act of profound self-sabotage. To care for this self, to be a true friend to it, is the most logical and beneficial foundation for a happy life, and a life that does not cause harm to others. This is why self-compassion is the absolute bedrock for genuine compassion for others. If we are at war with ourselves, any kindness we show to the outside world can be tainted. It might be a performance designed to win approval, a way to feel superior, or a distraction from our own inner pain. But when we learn to accept our own flaws, we become far more accepting of the flaws in others. When we can hold our own suffering with tenderness, our capacity to hold the suffering of others expands exponentially. When we know the terrain of our own heart, with all its light and all its shadow, we can meet another human being with true empathy, seeing them not as a problem to be fixed or a person to be judged, but as a fellow traveler on this complex human journey. Self-compassion is what finally dissolves the hard shell of judgment that keeps us feeling separate and alone. It is the ultimate act of finding refuge. We often look for refuge in our relationships, in our work, in our possessions, hoping they will make us feel safe and whole. But all of these things are impermanent. The only true refuge, the only true home that is always available to us, is the sanctuary of our own compassionate heart. Learning to return to this home again and again is the end of the inner war and the beginning of true peace. With this foundation of kindness for ourselves and for others now laid, our hearts are more open and our minds are more clear. We are now prepared to use this compassionate awareness to look at one of the greatest sources of our collective anxiety and dissatisfaction: our relationship with the material world. Having cultivated the inner ground of our hearts with the healing waters of mindfulness and compassion, we now have the stability to turn our clear-eyed attention to one of the most powerful and pervasive forces in our modern world: our relationship with material things. We live immersed in a culture that is built upon a single, powerful promise. The promise that happiness can be bought. It is whispered to us from every screen, every billboard, every magazine. It is the unspoken creed of our time. We call this belief system materialism, and it is the great trap of the age of abundance. From the moment we wake up, we are swimming in a sea of messages designed to create a sense of lack. Every advertisement, no matter what it is selling, delivers the same fundamental sermon. It says, "You, as you are right now, are not quite complete. There is something missing, something wrong. You are not attractive enough, not successful enough, not secure enough. But this product, this car, this phone, this vacation, this piece of clothing, this is the answer. Acquire this, and you will finally be whole. You will be happy." This entire system is a vast and sophisticated engine for the manufacturing of tanha, the thirst, the craving that we have already identified as the root cause of our suffering. It is designed to make us feel perpetually dissatisfied, to create an itch that can only be relieved by the temporary scratch of a new purchase. Many of us spend our lives believing this promise. We work hard, we achieve, we accumulate. We get the better job, the bigger house, the newer car. And with each acquisition, there is a genuine but fleeting moment of pleasure, a thrill of novelty, a hit of dopamine, a feeling of having finally arrived. But then, something strange happens. The thrill fades. The new car becomes just the car. The excitement wears off, and the beautiful new house becomes simply the backdrop of our ordinary life. This phenomenon is so predictable, it has a name in modern psychology: the hedonic treadmill. We run and run, acquiring more and more, seeking that initial high, but our baseline of happiness remains stubbornly the same. We simply adapt to our new circumstances, and the thirst returns, now demanding something even better, even more expensive, to give us the same feeling of satisfaction. We are running faster and faster, but we are not getting any closer to a lasting destination of peace. We are simply exhausted. The wisdom of the Buddhist path offers a radical alternative to this exhausting chase. It is crucial to understand that this path does not condemn wealth or possessions in themselves. There is no inherent virtue in poverty, nor is there inherent evil in comfort. The teaching is far more subtle. The problem is not the thing, it is the clinging. It is our attachment to material things, the deep-seated belief that our identity, our security, and our happiness depend on them. When we are attached to our possessions, they cease to be sources of simple utility or joy, and instead become sources of anxiety. We worry about them being scratched, stolen, or lost. We compare our possessions to those of others, breeding envy and insecurity. We live with a constant, low-grade fear that the foundation of our happiness is fragile and can be taken away at any moment. In a profound reversal, our possessions end up possessing us. Our lives become dedicated to serving them, protecting them, and acquiring more of them. There is a timeless story that perfectly illustrates this point. A powerful king, a man who possessed immense wealth and commanded great armies, found himself deeply unhappy. His palaces felt empty, his fine foods tasted bland, and a sense of profound meaninglessness haunted his days. He heard stories of a simple monk who lived in the nearby forest, a man who owned nothing, but was said to possess a deep and unshakable contentment. Driven by a mix of curiosity and desperation, the king went to find him. He found the monk sitting peacefully under a tree, wearing a simple patched robe with a wooden begging bowl beside him. The king, in all his royal finery, demanded, "Monk, I have everything a man could ever dream of, and yet I am miserable. You have nothing, and yet you seem to be at peace. I command you to tell me your secret." The monk smiled, a gentle, untroubled smile. He gestured to his simple robe and bowl. "Your Majesty," he began, "the secret is not in what I have, but in what I do not need. My happiness comes from the simple fact that this robe and this bowl are enough for me. Your unhappiness comes from the simple fact that this entire kingdom, with all its palaces and all its treasures, is not enough for you. You, Your Majesty, are suffering from the poverty of always wanting more. This is the heart of the matter. True wealth, from this perspective, is not about having many things, but about needing very few. It is an inner state of being that the ancient texts call santuti, or contentment. Contentment is the profound and liberating feeling of enough. It is not a lazy resignation or an abandonment of improving one's life. It is the release from the frantic, exhausting game of if only. If only I had that house, then I would be happy. If only I got that promotion, then I would feel secure. Contentment gently puts an end to this game. It looks at the present moment, at what one already has, and declares, "This is enough. Right here, right now, I have everything I need to be at peace." When we can cultivate this inner state of contentment, an enormous amount of mental energy is liberated. The energy that was once consumed by craving, comparing, planning, and worrying is now free. It can be redirected towards things that provide a far more stable and sustainable form of happiness. This points to another crucial distinction: the difference between happiness derived from external sources and happiness derived from internal sources. External happiness is dependent on things outside of us: possessions, social status, praise from others, sensory pleasures. Because all of these things are, by their nature, impermanent and outside of our ultimate control, this form of happiness is inherently fragile. Possessions break, fashions change, status can be lost, praise can turn into criticism overnight. To build our life's happiness on this foundation is to build our house upon shifting sand. Internal happiness, however, is a different matter entirely. It is a well-being that arises from the qualities of our own mind and heart. It is the peace that comes from a calm and mindful mind. It is the joy that comes from a compassionate and open heart. It is the fulfillment that comes from meaningful relationships, from creativity, and from living with a sense of purpose. This form of happiness is stable, resilient, and portable. It cannot be stolen or lost. It is a wellspring that we can learn to tap into, regardless of our external circumstances. This is the true treasure that the path of wisdom invites us to discover. The trap of materialism, therefore, is not the objects themselves, but the false promise they whisper to us. They promise a fulfillment they can never deliver. We have chased this promise, and it has led us to an endless treadmill of striving and dissatisfaction. The way off this treadmill is not necessarily to renounce all our possessions and go live in a forest. It is to renounce our attachment to them. It is to change our inner posture from one of grasping and needing to one of gratitude and contentment. It is to shift our life's primary investment from the accumulation of external things to the cultivation of internal qualities. By loosening our obsessive grip on things, we discover a new lightness, a new freedom. This profound practice of letting go, of loving without clinging, is not only essential in our relationship with the material world, it is even more vital and often more challenging in the most important area of our lives, our relationships with other people. We have explored the subtle trap of materialism, seeing how our attachment to physical things can become a source of anxiety rather than joy. We have learned that freedom lies not in what we have, but in our ability to hold it lightly. Now, we turn this lens of inquiry from the world of objects to the far more complex, dynamic, and vital realm of our human connections. Our relationships are the source of our greatest happiness and, often, our deepest pain. Here, in the landscape of the heart, the practice of letting go becomes both more challenging and more profoundly rewarding. The art of loving without grasping is perhaps the highest form of wisdom we can cultivate. Just as with material things, the Buddhist teaching on relationships is not one of cold detachment or aloof indifference. It is the very opposite. It is a path to a purer, deeper, and more authentic form of love. The key, once again, lies in making a crucial distinction, this time between love and attachment. These two energies feel very similar and are often tangled together in our relationships, but they flow in opposite directions and lead to vastly different outcomes. Love, in its purest form, is the energy of metta and karuna. It is the unconditional wish for another person to be happy and to be free from suffering. It is an outward flowing generosity of spirit. When you truly love someone, your primary desire is for their well-being. This kind of love is freeing. It celebrates the other person's autonomy. It delights in their growth, and it supports their happiness, even if it does not directly involve you. It is a gift freely given, with no strings attached. Attachment, on the other hand, flows in the opposite direction. It is a form of tanha, the thirst. It is not about what we want for the other person, but about what we want from them. Attachment uses the other person to fill a perceived lack in ourselves. It says, "I need you to make me feel secure. I need you to complete me. I need you to behave in a way that validates my ego. I need you to never leave me because I am afraid of being alone." This is not love for the other person. It is a strategy for managing our own fear and insecurity. It is transactional, possessive, and rooted in a sense of scarcity. While love liberates, attachment imprisons both people in a cage of need and expectation. Most of our relationships, if we are honest, are a complex mixture of these two energies. The practice is not to achieve a perfect, attachment-free love overnight, but to learn to mindfully recognize the difference in our own hearts. In any given moment, we can ask ourselves, is my action or my feeling coming from a place of wanting them to be happy, or from a place of wanting them to make me happy? This simple, honest inquiry can begin to untangle the knot. Attachment most commonly manifests in our relationships as a vast and often unspoken web of expectations. We enter into connections with a mental blueprint of how the other person should be. We expect our partner to be a mind reader, to anticipate our needs. We expect our children to follow a certain path, to fulfill our own unrealized dreams. We expect our friends to always agree with us, to always be available. We hold up this ideal image, and then we are constantly disappointed and hurt when the real, complex, living person in front of us fails to match it. We then mistakenly believe that the problem is the other person. We think if only they would change, if only they would be more like our blueprint, then we would be happy. And so we try to fix them, to manage them, to control them, through criticism, guilt, or manipulation. This is the source of endless conflict and suffering in our relationships. The path of wisdom suggests that the problem is not the other person's failure to meet our expectations. The problem is the expectation itself. An expectation is a form of mental clinging, a demand that reality bend to our will. Letting go of rigid expectations is a profound act of love. It is the gift of allowing another person the space to be who they truly are, not who we need them to be. There is a simple and beautiful parable for this. If you go to the seashore and scoop up a handful of dry sand, and then, wanting to possess it, you clench your fist as tightly as you can, what happens? The sand, under pressure, immediately begins to trickle out through the gaps between your fingers. The tighter you squeeze, the more desperately you try to hold on, the faster you lose it, until your hand is empty. But if, instead, you hold that same sand in a relaxed, open palm, it will rest there peacefully. You can appreciate it, feel its texture, enjoy its warmth. It remains with you freely. Our relationships are like this sand. When we try to possess another person, to control them with our fears, our insecurities, and our expectations, we squeeze the life, the joy, and the spontaneity out of the connection. Our very grasping drives them away. But when we can learn to love with an open hand, offering our presence, our support, our warmth, without demanding anything in return, we create a space where true intimacy can flourish. This open-handed love is not a passive state, it is an active practice. It is the practice of deep listening. This means listening to another person with only one purpose: to understand. It means setting aside our own inner monologue, our own agenda, our own need to be right, and offering them the rare and precious gift of our full, undivided presence. It is listening not just to their words, but to the feelings behind their words, to the silences between their words. This kind of listening dissolves misunderstanding and creates the safety needed for true connection. It is also the practice of loving speech. This is the art of speaking truthfully, but always with a foundation of kindness. Before we speak in a moment of conflict, we can pause and ask ourselves 3 questions. Is what I am about to say true? Is it necessary? And, most importantly, is it kind? This simple pause can transform our words from weapons that create wounds into instruments of healing. Finally, loving without grasping means embracing the truth of anicca, impermanence, within our relationships. This can be the most difficult teaching to accept. We want love to be the one thing that is permanent, the one thing that lasts forever. But people change, we change, feelings evolve, and all relationships, in their current form, will one day end, either through separation or, ultimately, through death. To cling to a relationship as a static, permanent thing is to live in constant fear of its inevitable change or loss. True love, a love informed by wisdom, does not ignore this truth. It embraces it. This acceptance of impermanence does not make love less valuable. It makes it infinitely more precious. When we know that our time with someone is not guaranteed, we are less likely to take them for granted. We cherish this day, this conversation, this quiet moment together, because we know it is a unique and unrepeatable gift. We learn to love the person who is with us today, not the memory of who they were yesterday or the idea of who they might be tomorrow. The goal of a wise relationship, then, is not possession, but connection. It is not about 2 halves becoming a whole, but about 2 whole individuals walking a shared path, each supporting the other's journey towards freedom. It is about trading the need to be right for the desire to be kind. It is about letting go of the exhausting project of trying to change someone, and instead investing that energy in the beautiful practice of simply understanding them. This is one of the most profound spiritual practices we can undertake. It frees us from the torment of neediness, and it offers the people we love the greatest gift of all, the freedom to be themselves. Having now applied this principle of letting go to our inner world, our possessions, and our personal relationships, we can widen our lens one step further to see how this wisdom can transform how we engage with the world through our work and our daily activities. We have journeyed through the intimate landscapes of our inner world, our possessions, and our personal relationships, learning to apply the gentle wisdom of letting go. Now, we turn our attention to the domain that, for most of us, occupies the largest portion of our waking hours, our work. For so many in the modern world, work is a primary source of identity, but also a primary source of stress, anxiety, and a feeling of being trapped on a treadmill. We often see our work life and our spiritual life as two separate and often conflicting realms. We work to earn a living and then hope to find peace and meaning in the leftover moments. But the path of wisdom does not ask us to create such a division. It invites us to see that our work, too, can be a rich and fertile ground for practice. It can be transformed from an obstacle into an integral part of our path. This is the teaching of Sama Ajiva, or right livelihood. Right livelihood is a core element of the Eightfold Path, the practical roadmap laid out by the Buddha for the cessation of suffering. At its most fundamental level, it is an ethical teaching. It asks us to earn our living in a way that does not cause harm to ourselves or to other beings. The traditional texts list specific trades to be avoided: dealing in weapons, in poisons, in intoxicants, or in the trading of human or animal life. But we can expand this principle to our contemporary world with a simple, reflective question: does the work I do contribute to the well-being and healing of the world, or does it, directly or indirectly, contribute to suffering? This is not a question for judging others, but for honest self-inquiry. Does my work depend on exploiting people? Does it damage the natural environment? Does it thrive by promoting the very craving and dissatisfaction that we have seen is the root of our own unhappiness? To engage with these questions is the first step in aligning our daily actions with our deepest values. But the practice of right livelihood goes far beyond just its ethical foundation. Many of us may not have the luxury of choosing a profession that is perfectly harmless or overtly altruistic. The wisdom of this path is that it is less about what you do and more about the consciousness you bring to it. It is possible to transform even the most seemingly mundane job into a profound spiritual practice by shifting our core intention. Our culture trains us to approach work with the question, what can I get? We seek money, status, promotions, recognition, and power. This get mentality keeps us in a state of striving and comparison. Right livelihood invites a revolutionary shift in perspective, to ask instead, what can I give? From this new vantage point, any job can become an act of service. If you are a cleaner, you are not just mopping floors. You are creating a space of order, safety, and health for others. If you are a chef, you are not just cooking food. You are offering nourishment and pleasure. If you are a software engineer, you are not just writing code. You are creating tools that can help people connect, learn, or solve problems. When we focus on our work as a contribution, as a way of serving our fellow human beings, it is infused with a new sense of meaning and purpose. Our work is no longer just a way to get a paycheck. It becomes a way to express our interconnectedness. This shift in intention is supported by the practical application of mindfulness in the workplace. In our hyper-connected, fast-paced work environments, our attention is constantly fragmented. We pride ourselves on multitasking, but in reality, we are just practicing a state of continuous partial distraction. This leads to stress, mistakes, and burnout. To practice mindfulness at work is to engage in the radical act of single tasking. When you are writing an email, just write the email. Give it your full, undivided attention. When you are in a meeting, truly be in the meeting. Listen with the intention to understand, not just to reply. By bringing our full presence to each task, one at a time, we not only produce better work, but we dramatically reduce the mental friction and stress that comes from a scattered mind. We can also pepper our day with mindful pauses. Taking just 60 seconds between tasks to close your eyes and focus on 3 conscious breaths can reset the nervous system and bring a moment of sanity to a hectic day. This mindful approach to work helps us to find the middle way between 2 unhealthy extremes that our culture often promotes. One extreme is that of relentless, obsessive ambition. This is the hustle culture that glorifies burnout and sees rest as a sign of weakness. It is driven by a deep-seated fear of being a failure, and it inevitably leads to exhaustion and a life that is out of balance. The other extreme is apathy and laziness, a disengaged state of just going through the motions, which leads to a sense of meaninglessness and despair. The middle way, a core principle of all Buddhist teachings, avoids both. It is the path of applying diligent, wholehearted effort to the task at hand, while simultaneously letting go of our attachment to the outcome. We do our very best. We pour our full presence into our work, and then we release the results to the world. We cannot control how our work will be received, whether it will lead to praise or criticism, success or failure. By letting go of this attachment, we free ourselves from the crippling anxiety of success and the deep despair of failure. We find joy in the process itself, not just in the hoped-for result. There is a beautiful story found in the writings of the Taoist philosopher Chuang Tzu that captures the essence of this state of being. A master woodcarver was renowned for his ability to carve magnificent bell stands that seemed to be the work of spirits. The prince, amazed by his skill, asked him for his secret. The carver explained that his method was one of mental and spiritual preparation. Before he even thought about touching a piece of wood, he would fast for several days to quiet his mind and still his spirit. During this time, he said, he would let go of all thoughts of praise or reward. He would let go of all thoughts of blame or criticism. He would even let go of the thought of his own hands and his physical form. He would become so still that the idea of the prince and his court simply vanished. Then, and only then, would he go into the forest. He would walk amongst the trees, simply observing. He would wait until his eyes could perceive the perfect form of the bell stand already existing within the natural grain and shape of a particular tree. He said that his work was not to force his own will upon the wood, but simply to use his tools to release the form that was already there. His secret, he concluded, was nothing more than matching heaven with heaven, aligning his own quieted, natural spirit with the inherent nature of the wood. The act of carving, then, was not a struggle, but a joyful and effortless flow. This is the state of being that right livelihood makes possible. Our work becomes a dance, not a battle. It is a dance between effort and surrender, between focus and letting go. By infusing our daily labor with an ethical foundation, a spirit of service, and a mindful presence, we transform it. It ceases to be a separate, secular part of our life that we must endure, and becomes a living, breathing practice of waking up. It is about finding the sacred in the ordinary, and realizing that the path to peace is not found by escaping our life, but by being more fully present for all of it. To walk this path, to maintain this sense of flow and harmony in our work and in our lives, requires us to cultivate a mind that is not rigid or jaded by expertise, but one that is always fresh, open, and curious. It requires us to cultivate what is known as the beginner's mind. We have explored the path of right livelihood, seeing how our daily work can be transformed from a source of stress into a field of mindful, compassionate practice. We have learned to find the middle way between striving and surrender, and to infuse our actions with a sense of purpose. Yet, as we travel any path for a length of time, a subtle danger arises. The danger is that of routine, the danger of expertise. Our practice, our work, our very lives can become so familiar that we begin to operate on autopilot. Our minds, which we have worked so diligently to awaken, can become rigid with habit, closed off by the comfortable feeling of knowing. The antidote to this spiritual staleness, the secret to keeping our journey forever fresh and alive, is the cultivation of a quality known in the Zen tradition as Shoshin, or beginner's mind. Beginner's mind is the practice of seeing the world through the eyes of a child. It is the ability to approach every experience as if for the very first time, with a spirit of openness, curiosity, and wonder. It is a mind that is free from the heavy baggage of preconceptions, judgments, and the arrogance of expertise. The great Zen master Shunryu Suzuki captured the essence of this teaching in a single, profound statement. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few. Consider the expert's mind. This is the mind we are trained to cultivate in our society. It is efficient, analytical, and full of information. When it encounters a new situation, it immediately scans its vast database of past experiences and categorizes it, labels it, and files it away. Oh, I've seen this before. This is just like that other time. I know how this works. The expert's mind is quick to judge and quick to dismiss. While it can be useful for performing repetitive tasks, it is closed to novelty. It operates from a pre-written script, and it filters all of reality through what it already knows. It cannot see what is actually here, because it is too busy seeing what it expects to be here. There is very little room for discovery, for awe, for genuine learning. The beginner's mind, in contrast, is wide open. It is empty of conclusions. It does not assume it knows the answer. It is willing to be surprised. It looks at the world not with the goal of confirming its existing beliefs, but with the genuine desire to understand. It is the mind that asks the naive questions. Why do we do it this way? What is this? Really, what if we tried something completely different? It is this quality of mind that is the source of all true creativity, all scientific breakthroughs, and all spiritual insight. There is a classic Zen story that vividly illustrates the necessity of this open-mindedness. A highly educated university professor, a renowned expert in philosophy and world religions, came to visit an old Zen master to learn about Zen. The master welcomed him warmly and invited him for tea. As the professor began to speak, he eagerly displayed his vast intellectual knowledge, talking at length about the various scriptures he had studied and the complex theories he had formulated about enlightenment. The Zen master listened patiently as he prepared the tea. He took the professor's cup and began to pour. He filled it right to the brim, and then he just kept pouring. Tea overflowed the cup, cascading onto the saucer and spilling all over the table. The professor, unable to contain his alarm, shouted, "Stop! It's full! No more will go in." The master stopped pouring, looked calmly at the professor, and said, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" We are all, in our own way, this professor. We come to our lives each day with a cup that is already full. It is full of our opinions, our beliefs, our judgments about ourselves and others, our stories about how the world works. Beginner's mind is the practice of consciously, intentionally, emptying our cup in each moment, so that we can receive the reality of that moment, fresh and unfiltered. This is not just a philosophical idea. It is a practical skill we can apply in every area of our lives. Consider your most important relationships. How often do you truly listen to your partner, your child, or your close friend? Or do you listen through the thick filter of your history with them, thinking, "I know what they are going to say. Here they go again." This is the expert's mind at work, and it stifles intimacy. To practice beginner's mind in a relationship is to try to listen as if you have never heard this person before, to be genuinely curious about their inner world right now, to see the person who is sitting in front of you today, not just the accumulated story you have about them in your head. This simple shift can breathe new life and tenderness into a connection that has grown stale with familiarity. In our work, beginner's mind is the engine of innovation. The expert's mind sees a recurring problem and applies the same old, tired solutions. The beginner's mind looks at the same problem with fresh eyes and asks the questions that no one else is asking. It challenges assumptions. It is willing to say, "I don't know," which is the necessary starting point for any real discovery. Most importantly, we must bring beginner's mind to our own spiritual practice. It is so easy to turn meditation into just another routine, another task to be judged. We sit down, and the expert mind immediately starts its commentary. This is a good meditation. This is a bad meditation. I'm too distracted today. I should be more peaceful by now. Beginner's mind approaches each session as a completely new and unknown adventure. It sits down with the simple question, "I wonder what is here, right now." It meets whatever arises: stillness, restlessness, joy, boredom with the same open and curious acceptance. It treats the timeless teachings not as facts to be memorized, but as living mysteries to be explored anew in each moment. The core of this practice is a gentle letting go of the ego's need to be right, the need to be the one who knows. It requires a certain humility, a comfort with the open space of not knowing. This can feel vulnerable because the ego finds its security in certainty, but it is in this very space of uncertainty that the magic of life happens. It is the practice of replacing the periods in our mental sentences with question marks. Instead of stating, "This is how my life is," we can learn to ask, "I wonder, what is my life really?" When we cultivate this state of mind, we rediscover the joy of simple existence. We have seen 1,000 sunsets, so the expert's mind says, "Sunset," and moves on. The beginner's mind sees this sunset, with its unique and unrepeatable colors and cloud formations, and is filled with awe. We have drunk 10,000 glasses of water, but the beginner's mind can taste the simple, life-giving miracle of this glass of water. The world is reborn. Life ceases to be a boring repetition of the familiar, because we realize, in a profound way, that we have never truly seen it before. Beginner's mind is the conscious and continuous choice to remain open, to stay curious, and to be humble in the face of life's boundless mystery. It is the art of emptying our cup so that we can be filled by the richness of each moment. This profound state of openness, this radical willingness to see beyond our habits and labels, is the essential preparation for exploring an even deeper, more subtle understanding of reality. It allows us to approach one of the most profound teachings of all, the idea that all things, when examined closely, are found to be empty of a separate, solid, independent existence. This is the gateway to the wisdom of emptiness, or sunyata. With the open, curious, and humble attitude of a beginner's mind, we are now ready to approach one of the most profound, beautiful, and easily misunderstood teachings on the path of wisdom. It is the teaching on what is called sunyata, or emptiness. The word itself can sound frightening to the Western ear. It might evoke images of a cold, nihilistic void, a sense of meaninglessness, or a denial of life. But the reality of this teaching is the very opposite. Emptiness, in the Buddhist sense, is not a void. It is a fullness. It is not an absence, but a presence. It is the key that unlocks the deepest reality of our interconnectedness and the ultimate foundation for a compassionate heart. The central question to ask is not, what is emptiness, but rather, empty of what? The answer is simple and revolutionary. Everything is empty of a separate, independent, isolated self. Nothing in this universe exists on its own. Everything comes into being, exists for a time, and passes away based on a web of countless other things. This is the great principle of interdependence, or dependent origination. It means that everything is with everything else. To make this clear, let us not talk in abstract philosophy. Let us practice a deep looking, using a simple object. Imagine in your hands, right now, a single sheet of paper. It seems simple, solid, and separate. It seems to be an independent thing. But let us look more deeply, with the eyes of wisdom. If we look at this sheet of paper, we can see a cloud floating in it. This may sound like poetry, but it is a scientific reality. Without a cloud, there can be no rain. Without rain, the trees cannot grow. And without the trees, we cannot make paper. So the cloud is an essential part of the paper's existence. The paper is empty of a separate self, but it is full of the cloud. If we continue to look, we can see the sunshine in the paper. The sun's light is necessary for the tree to grow through photosynthesis. So, the sunshine is in the paper. And if we look further, we see the logger who cut down the tree. We can see his hands, his sweat. We can see the breakfast he ate that morning to give him the energy for his work. This means that the wheat field, the baker who made the bread, and the farmer who grew the wheat are also all present in this single sheet of paper. Look further still. We can see the logger's parents and their parents, because without them, he would not exist. We can see the people who designed the machines at the paper mill, the truck driver who transported the wood, the person at the store who sold you the paper. Their lives, their dreams, their efforts are all woven into this simple object. The earth, the minerals in the soil, the river that flowed nearby, all of these non-paper elements are, in fact, the very substance of the paper. If you were to begin removing these non-paper elements, if you took out the cloud, the sun, the logger, the farmer, the earth, the sheet of paper would instantly cease to exist. So, we must conclude that the paper is empty of any separate, isolated identity. Its being is comprised entirely of the being of everything else. It interis with the entire cosmos. Now, let us turn this same deep looking upon ourselves. We feel so strongly that I am a separate self, an independent entity inside this body. But let us investigate. Look at your body. It is made of the food you have eaten, the water you have drunk, the air you are breathing, the sun, the earth, the clouds, the farmer saw, the elements that were in the sheet of paper are also in you. You are breathing out carbon dioxide that will be taken in by a plant, which may be eaten by an animal, which may be eaten by another person. In this very moment, you are exchanging yourself with the universe. You are not a separate island. Look at your mind, your thoughts, your ideas, your language, your beliefs. Where did they come from? They came from your parents, your teachers, your friends, the books you have read, the culture you were raised in. Not a single idea you have is originally yours. You are a continuation of countless generations and influences. If we were to take away all of these non-you elements, your parents, your food, the air, the culture, the language, what would be left of this you? Nothing at all. Just like the sheet of paper, you are empty of a separate, independent self. Your entire being is a manifestation of the entire universe. You are with all that is. Another beautiful way to understand this is with the metaphor of the wave and the ocean. Imagine you are a wave on the sea. You have a clear form. You have a beginning as you rise from the water, a middle as you travel, and an end as you crash upon the shore. From your perspective as a wave, you might experience birth and death. You might feel fear as you approach the shore, afraid of your own annihilation. You might feel separate from the other waves, perhaps comparing your size and strength to theirs. But what is the fundamental nature of the wave? It is water. At no point is the wave ever separate from the great ocean. Its beginning is simply the ocean manifesting in a particular form. Its end is simply the ocean receiving that form back into itself. The form of the wave is temporary, but its substance, the water, is never born and never dies. We are like these waves. We have our individual bodies, our unique life stories, our sense of a beginning at birth and an end at death. But our true nature, our substance, is the vast, timeless ocean of life itself. We are a temporary and beautiful manifestation of the whole. Understanding this does not mean we lose our individuality. The wave is still a unique wave. It means we lose our painful sense of separation. This realization of sunyata, of emptiness as interbeing, is not a dry intellectual concept. It is a profound shift in perception that changes everything. First, it is the ultimate antidote to loneliness. The feeling of being an isolated self, a fragile ego struggling against a vast and indifferent world, dissolves in the light of this understanding. We realize that true separation is impossible. We are woven into the fabric of existence, as essential to the whole as every other thread. This is a homecoming to our true nature, a source of deep comfort and a profound sense of belonging. Second, this is the ultimate foundation for boundless compassion. As long as we believe in a solid barrier between me and you, compassion remains a moral choice, an ethical duty. But when we see deeply that there is no fundamental separation, compassion becomes the most natural and logical response to life. Your suffering is my suffering, because your being and my being are inextricably linked. Your joy is my joy. Helping you, I am helping myself. We see that all harm is, in essence, self-harm, and all kindness is self-kindness. And finally, this understanding fosters a deep sense of responsibility. If we are all part of one interdependent web of life, then every thought we think, every word we speak, and every action we take sends ripples out across the entire web. We realize we are not passive observers of the world. but active co-creators of it in every single moment. This inspires us to live more mindfully, more gently, and more lovingly upon the earth. Emptiness, therefore, is not a cold void, but a warm, vibrant, and dynamic dance of interdependence. It is the realization that the entire universe is present in every flower, in every breath, in every human heart. It is the very basis of love. To see this is to see that the world is not a collection of separate objects, but a single, seamless, and miraculous whole. When we understand this profound truth, our perception of the world begins to change. We begin to see the sacred not just in grand temples or dramatic landscapes, but in the most simple, humble, and ordinary moments of our daily lives. When the entire cosmos is present in a single cup of tea, that cup of tea becomes a miracle worthy of our full attention. We have walked the profound path to the wisdom of sunyata, or emptiness, and have arrived at a startling and beautiful realization. Nothing exists in isolation. We have seen that a simple sheet of paper contains the entire cosmos, and that our own being is a momentary and miraculous expression of all that is, all that has ever been, and all that will ever be. To truly absorb this truth is to see the world with new eyes. When the universe is present in every particle of dust, then there is no such thing as an ordinary moment. Life reveals itself not as a mundane sequence of events, but as a continuous, unfolding miracle. The great challenge of our lives, then, is not to seek out miraculous experiences, but to awaken to the miracle of our ordinary experience. This is the practice of finding joy in the simple things. For most of us, this is a radical shift. We are conditioned to live our lives for the future. We treat the present moment as a mere stepping stone, a means to an end. We endure the workday to get to the weekend. We rush through our meals to get to the next task. We see our life not as a rich journey to be savored, but as a long list of things to be done, a series of obstacles to overcome before we can finally give ourselves permission to be happy. We believe happiness resides in the grand events, the wedding, the promotion, the exotic vacation, the day we finally retire. We spend our lives waiting for the highlights, and in doing so, we miss our life itself, which is happening quietly, humbly, in the small, uncelebrated spaces in between. The path of awakening invites us to stop waiting. It asks us to gently lay down the heavy burden of striving for a future happiness, and to discover the joy that is already here, patiently waiting for us in the fabric of the present moment. The key to this discovery is the very same tool we have been honing all along, mindfulness. But here, we use it not just to find calm or to observe our thoughts, but as an instrument for uncovering wonder. Let us begin with something utterly simple: a cup of tea. For most of us, this is a routine, an unconscious act. We drink it while reading the news, while working, while lost in a stream of worry. To practice finding the miracle, we can choose to drink just one cup of tea with our full presence. First, simply look at it. Notice the color of the liquid, the way the light passes through it. See the steam rising, a soft, impermanent dance in the air. Hold the cup in your hands and feel its warmth seeping into your palms. A small, comforting heat. Bring it to your nose and inhale its fragrance. Before you even taste it, you have already had a rich, multi-sensory experience. Then, take a sip. Let the liquid rest in your mouth for a moment. Notice its taste, its temperature, its texture. Feel it travel down your throat. As you do this, remember the teaching of interbeing. This cup of tea is a miracle. It contains the cloud, the rain, the soil, and the sunshine that nourished the tea leaves. It contains the hard work of the farmer who picked them, the truck driver who transported them, the person who packed them. In this simple cup, the entire history of the universe has conspired to bring you this warm, comforting drink. To drink a cup of tea in this way is to be in deep communion with life itself. It is no longer a mundane act. It is a profound ceremony of gratitude. We can extend this practice to any part of our day. Consider the simple act of washing the dishes. For many, this is a dreaded chore, something to be rushed through as quickly as possible. But it can be transformed into a powerful meditation. Instead of seeing it as an obstacle between you and relaxation, you can choose to be fully present for the act itself. Feel the warmth of the water on your hands. Notice the scent of the soap. See the bubbles form and pop. Listen to the sound of the water running. Feel the satisfaction of taking a dirty dish and making it clean. In these few moments, you can be completely present. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh famously said that if you cannot wash the dishes mindfully, you will not be able to enjoy your cup of tea mindfully either. If we are always rushing to get to the good parts of life, we will find that our mind is still rushing even when the good parts arrive. Peace is found not in changing our activities, but in changing our awareness of our activities. This practice fundamentally rewires our perception of happiness. It dismantles the destructive, if only mindset that plagues so many of us. If only I had more money. If only I were in a different relationship. If only my job were less stressful. The if only mind constantly postpones peace. The mindful appreciation of the simple things brings happiness into the here and now. It reveals that we do not need to wait for our circumstances to be perfect to experience a sense of well-being. Peace can be found right here, in the feeling of warm water on our hands, in the taste of a piece of bread, in the simple act of breathing. This shift in attention naturally gives rise to a profound sense of gratitude. When we stop taking our lives for granted, we begin to notice the countless miracles we are gifted every single day. The miracle of a body that can see, hear, and feel. The miracle of clean water flowing from a tap. The miracle of having a roof over our head and food to eat. These are not small things. For much of the world, they are unimaginable luxuries. Gratitude is not something we have to force. It is the natural response of a heart that is paying attention. With this way of seeing, our very definition of a miracle begins to change. We are taught to think of a miracle as a violation of the laws of natura, supernatural event. But from a wiser perspective, a miracle is not a violation of nature. It is the full, appreciative experience of nature. Is it not a miracle that a tiny seed, with just soil, water, and light, can become a towering tree? Is it not a miracle that our lungs can draw in the air around us and convert it into the very energy of our life? The greatest miracle is not walking on water, but walking on the earth with presence and with love. There is a story of a student who came to a Zen master and asked, "Master, I have heard that in the old days there were masters who could perform great miracles. They could make flowers bloom out of season and hear the thoughts of others. What kind of miracles can you perform?" The master smiled and replied, "I, too, can perform miracles. When I am hungry, I eat. When I am tired, I sleep." The student was confused, thinking, "But everyone does that. How is that a miracle?" The master explained, "When most people eat, they are not really eating. They are thinking of 1,000 other things. When most people sleep, they are not really sleeping. They are dreaming of 1,000 other things. But when I eat, I just eat. When I sleep, I just sleep. In this, there is a great miracle." This is the invitation, to find the miraculous in the utterly ordinary. to stop searching for a more special life, and to start living more fully the life that we already have. To find joy not in the extraordinary event, but in the extraordinary quality of attention we can bring to any event. When we cultivate this deep appreciation for the simple, fragile beauty of the present moment, it gives us a profound sense of nourishment and resilience. This very appreciation for life, in all its simplicity, is what prepares us to face life's greatest challenges with an open heart. When we have learned to cherish the sweetness of a single strawberry, we are better equipped to face the inevitable tigers, to confront the inescapable reality of loss. We have explored the art of finding the miraculous in the simple, everyday moments of our lives. We have learned to drink our tea, to walk on the earth, and to engage with our world with a mindful, grateful presence. This practice fills our hearts with a quiet joy and a deep appreciation for the gift of being alive. But life, in its infinite wisdom, is a dance of both light and shadow. To be truly resilient, our practice must not only teach us how to savor the sweetness of the strawberry, but also how to face the inescapable tigers. So now, we turn our gentle, compassionate awareness to one of life's most profound, most challenging, and most universal experiences, the experience of loss. In a culture that often treats death as a taboo subject and grief as a sickness to be overcome as quickly as possible, the wisdom of the path offers a radically different approach. It does not ask us to deny our pain or to be strong in the face of sorrow. It invites us to see loss not as a failure or an accident, but as a natural and essential part of the great, flowing river of life. It is the most powerful and direct teaching we will ever receive on the truth of anicca, or impermanence. Because everything is constantly changing, loss is not a possibility. It is an inevitability. We will lose people we love. We will lose our youth and our health. We will lose our cherished roles and identities. And ultimately, one day, we will lose our own life. To look at this directly is not a morbid act. It is a courageous act of love. For it is only by acknowledging the finite nature of things that we can learn to truly cherish them. When loss arrives, it brings with it a powerful companion, grief. It is so important to understand that grief is not the enemy. Grief is the natural, healthy, and honorable expression of love. It is the emotional testimony to the depth of our connection. To not feel grief when you have lost something or someone you held dear would be to deny the love that was there. The problem then is not the grief itself. The suffering arises when we become either completely consumed and drowned by the grief, or when we try to suppress it and run away from it. This is where our practice of mindfulness becomes our most trusted ally. It offers us a way to be with our sorrow without being completely annihilated by it. When a wave of grief arises, a wave of sadness so intense it takes our breath away, we can use our practice to create a small, compassionate space around it. We can acknowledge its presence. This is a wave of immense sadness. We can feel its raw, physical energy in our body, the tightness in the throat, the ache in the chest, the heaviness in our limbs. We can breathe with it, gently, allowing it to be here. We are not trying to fix it or make it go away. We are simply giving our own pain a safe harbor in which to be felt. In doing this, we are no longer drowning in the wave. We are learning to surf it. We are the vast open sky of awareness, allowing the storm cloud of grief to pass through without resistance. Alongside this mindful presence, the wisdom of sunyata, of interbeing, offers a profound comfort. It teaches us that nothing is ever truly lost, because nothing exists in isolation. Everything merely changes form. Consider a cloud in the sky. When the cloud is gone, where did it go? It did not die. It has not been annihilated. It has transformed into rain, or mist, or snow. The water that was the cloud is now nourishing the forest, flowing in the river, or perhaps has even become the tea in your cup. Its form has changed, but its essence continues. So it is with a person we have loved and lost. Their physical form is no longer with us, and the pain of that absence is real and must be honored. But they have not vanished. They continue, in countless ways, within us and around us. They continue in the lessons they taught us, in the memories we cherish. They continue in the way we walk, or talk, or laugh, in the habits and mannerisms we inherited from them. They continue in the love they planted in our heart, a love that we can now offer to others. They have returned to the great ocean of being from which we all arose. To see in this way does not erase the sadness, but it can soften the hard edges of despair with a sense of peace and continuation. This perspective allows for another healing practice, the practice of gratitude in the midst of grief. Our suffering is often sharpest when our mind is fixated on what is no longer here. The practice is to gently, when we feel able, balance that pain with gratitude for what we were given. Instead of being consumed by the sorrow of the final chapter, we can learn to read the entire beautiful story with thanks. We can feel gratitude for the time we had, for the love that was shared, for the joy that was experienced. Pain and gratitude can coexist. In fact, holding them both together in our heart is the essence of a mature, compassionate, and realistic love. There is a powerful ancient story that teaches this lesson more beautifully than any other. It is the story of a woman named Kisa Gautami. Her only child, a young boy, had fallen ill and died. Overcome with a grief so powerful she could not accept reality, she picked up her son's small body and went from house to house in her village, desperately begging for a medicine that could bring him back to life. Some mocked her, others pitied her, but no one could help. Finally, a wise man saw her deep anguish and suggested she go and see the Buddha. She ran to the Buddha and laid her child at his feet, pleading with him to perform a miracle. The Buddha looked at her with immense compassion. He did not dismiss her or tell her to simply accept her fate. Instead, he gave her a task. He said to her, "I can make the medicine you seek, but to do so, I require one ingredient. You must go back into the village and bring me a single mustard seed from a house where no Wanino child, no parent, no spouse, no Savanthus ever died." Filled with a surge of hope, Kisa Gautami went from door to door. At the first house, a kind woman said, "Of course, I will give you a mustard seed." But when Kisa Gautami asked, "Has anyone in this house ever known death?" the woman's face fell. "Oh, yes," she said. "I lost my husband last year." At the next house, the answer was the same. A father had been lost. At the next, a beloved daughter. She went to every house in the village, and while everyone was willing to give her a seed, she could not find a single home that had not been touched by death. They all told her, "The living are few, but the dead are many." As the day wore on, a profound understanding began to dawn in Kisa Gautami's heart. Her unbearable, private agony was not hers alone. It was the shared, universal experience of all humanity. The pain she felt was the price of love in a world of impermanence. With this deep realization, her frantic clinging began to soften. She understood. She went to the forest, gently laid her son's body to rest, and returned to the Buddha, not as a desperate mother seeking a miracle, but as a woman who had awakened to the truth. The Buddha's great compassion was in not giving her an answer, but in giving her a practice that allowed her to find the answer for herself. Loss is life's most direct and potent teacher. It strips away all that is trivial and unimportant. In the face of death, our ambitions, our anxieties about our reputation, our clinging to possessions, all reveal themselves as insignificant. Loss focuses our attention on what truly matters: love, connection, and the sacred preciousness of this present moment. It is a painful but powerful wake-up call. The art of releasing, then, is not a cold detachment. It is a warm, tender, and courageous embrace of life in all its fullness, its joys and its sorrows. It is the wisdom to grieve what is lost, to be grateful for what was given, and to love what is here, right now, with our whole heart. When we can learn to face the greatest of all losses, we develop the strength and the open-heartedness to face the smaller losses, the daily disappointments, and the myriad ways in which life does not conform to our plans. We learn the profound wisdom of acceptance. We have stood at the edge of life's most profound abyss, learning to meet the great and inevitable reality of loss with a heart that is both tender and resilient. This practice of facing the ultimate impermanence prepares us for navigating the countless smaller losses we encounter every day. These are the moments when reality simply does not conform to our desires. It is the flight that gets cancelled, the project that fails, the criticism we receive, the illness that arrives uninvited. In these moments, big and small, we are faced with a fundamental choice, a choice between resistance and acceptance. And in that choice lies the difference between a life of constant, exhausting struggle and a life of profound peace. For most of us, our default response is resistance. When faced with an unpleasant reality, a powerful inner mechanism activates, a voice that launches a war against what is. It screams, "This shouldn't be happening." It argues with reality, insisting, "This isn't fair." It gets lost in a fantasy of how things should have been. This internal battle is incredibly draining. It is like trying to push a river upstream. We expend vast amounts of mental and emotional energy in a futile struggle against a current that is far more powerful than we are. We exhaust ourselves fighting a war that can never be won, because reality has already won. It simply is what it is. The ancient teachers of wisdom used a powerful metaphor to describe this self-inflicted suffering. They said that when we encounter a painful event in life, it is like being struck by an arrow. This first arrow is often unavoidable. Sickness happens, accidents happen, people disappoint us. This is the inherent dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness and pain that is simply part of life. But what we often do, in the moment after being struck, is to take out a second arrow and shoot ourselves with it. This second arrow is our reaction to the first. It is our resistance. It is the story we tell ourselves about the first arrow. It is the blame, the self-pity, the rage, the endless loop of "why me?" The pain of the first arrow is unavoidable, but the suffering of the second arrow is entirely optional. Acceptance is the simple, courageous act of refusing to shoot the second arrow. It is so important to understand what acceptance is and what it is not. Acceptance is not weakness. It is not passive resignation or apathy. It is not condoning bad behavior or giving up on making things better. Acceptance is a courageous, clear-eyed, and active engagement with reality as it is, in this very moment. It is the act of looking at the map of your life, seeing the pin that says, "You are here," and agreeing to start your journey from that point, rather than wasting all your energy wishing the pin was somewhere else. You cannot effectively navigate from a location you refuse to acknowledge. Acceptance, therefore, is not the end of action. It is the necessary, stable foundation from which all wise and effective action must begin. Imagine you receive a difficult medical diagnosis. Resistance would be to deny it, to get lost in anger and despair, to fight the reality of the test results. This state of inner turmoil makes it almost impossible to think clearly. Acceptance, on the other hand, would be to take a deep breath and acknowledge, okay, this is the situation. This is what is happening in my body right now. From this place of calm, clear-eyed acceptance, you are now free to use all of your energy to ask the important questions. What are the next steps? What are my options? How can I best care for myself? Acceptance does not mean you like the diagnosis. It means you have stopped wasting precious energy fighting the fact of it, so you can use that energy to heal. This profound wisdom is captured perfectly in a timeless Taoist parable about an old farmer. One day, the farmer's only horse, his most valuable possession, ran away. His neighbors all came to console him, saying, "Oh, what terrible luck. This is a disaster." The old farmer simply looked at them and replied, "Maybe." A week later, the horse returned, and it brought with it a herd of magnificent wild horses. The neighbors, overjoyed for him, came to celebrate. "What incredible fortune," they exclaimed. "You are now a wealthy man." The old farmer calmly replied, "Maybe." The next day, the farmer's son was attempting to train one of the wild horses when he was thrown off and his leg was badly broken. The neighbors again gathered, shaking their heads in sorrow. "That good fortune was a curse in disguise," they said. "Such awful luck." The farmer, looking at his son's injury, replied once more, "Maybe." A few weeks later, the emperor's army marched through the village, conscripting every able-bodied young man for a brutal and hopeless war. They took the sons of all the farmer's neighbors, but when they saw his son with his broken leg, they passed him by. The neighbors, weeping for their own lost sons, came to the farmer. "You were right to not judge," they said. "Your son has been spared. You are a truly lucky man." And the farmer, as you might guess, simply replied, "Maybe." This story is the very essence of acceptance. The farmer is not apathetic or uncaring. He feels the sting of loss when the horse runs away and the pain of seeing his son injured. But he lives with a profound humility, a deep understanding that he cannot possibly know the full story. Life is a vast, interconnected web of causes and effects, and what appears to be a tragedy in one moment may be the seed of a blessing in the next, and vice versa. Our labels of good luck and bad luck are premature judgments based on a tiny, incomplete sliver of a much larger picture. The farmer's maybe is a radical acceptance of the present moment, just as it is, without the need to immediately label it, judge it, or force it into a neat and tidy narrative. It is a release from the tyranny of our own limited understanding. So how can we cultivate this peaceful, powerful state of acceptance in our own lives? It begins with mindfulness. We must first become aware of the feeling of resistance. Notice when you are arguing with reality. It has a distinct physical signature, a tightness in the chest, a clenched jaw, a knot in the stomach. When you feel this tension, you can simply acknowledge it. Ah, here is resistance. I am fighting what is. This act of naming creates a space around the feeling. Then, you can consciously relax the body, let your shoulders drop, unclench your hands, take a deep breath, and, as you exhale, silently say a phrase that embodies acceptance. It could be as simple as, "This, too," or "This is how it is right now," or even just a gentle, internal whisper of the word yes. This is not a yes of approval. It is a yes of acknowledgement. Yes, I acknowledge that this is the reality I am facing in this moment. By practicing this, we slowly, gradually end the inner war. We stop shooting ourselves with the second arrow. We find that a vast reservoir of energy becomes available to us. Energy that was previously squandered in our struggle against the inevitable. This profound peace that comes from accepting the present moment, whatever it may hold, is the foundation for healing our relationship with the past. For it is only when we can accept the unchangeable reality of what has already happened that we can begin the liberating work of letting go of its burden. This opens the door to the next stage of our journey, the healing power of forgiveness. We have journeyed to a place of profound acceptance, learning to meet the unfolding reality of the present moment with a calm and open heart. We have practiced saying yes to what is, ending our exhausting war with reality. Now, with this newfound stability, we can turn our attention to the one place where reality is forever fixed and unchangeable: the past. For many of us, the past is not a peaceful landscape we have left behind. It is a heavy burden that we carry on our backs every single day. It is a sack filled with the sharp stones of old grievances, regrets, resentments, and shame. Forgiveness is the courageous and liberating act of finally setting that heavy sack down. It is not about changing the past, but about refusing to allow the past to continue to poison the present. Our minds often believe that holding on to anger and resentment is a form of power. We feel that by replaying the story of how we were wronged, by keeping our grievance alive, we are somehow punishing the person who hurt us. We believe that our anger is a weapon we are aiming at them. But the wisdom of the path reveals a startling truth. Holding on to resentment is like grasping a burning hot coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. In the end, you are the one who gets burned. The other person may be living their life completely unaware of your inner turmoil, while you are the one trapped in a prison of your own making, forced to relive the original pain over and over again. The anger, the bitterness, the desire for revenge, these are poisons that corrode our own peace, not theirs. Forgiveness is the antidote. It is the understanding that we are not letting the other person off the hook. We are letting ourselves off the hook. To embark on this path, it is absolutely essential to understand what forgiveness is not. It is not a weak or passive act. It is an act of profound strength and self-love. Firstly, forgiveness is not condoning. It does not mean saying that what happened was okay. Harmful actions are harmful. Betrayal is betrayal. Forgiveness does not erase the wrongness of the act. It simply dissolves our own toxic emotional attachment to it. You can forgive someone completely while still acknowledging that their behavior was unacceptable. Secondly, forgiveness is not forgetting. It does not require us to develop amnesia or to pretend the painful event never occurred. The memory may always be there, but forgiveness changes its quality. It removes the venomous sting. The memory becomes just a story, a scar from a wound that has healed, rather than an open wound that we constantly pick at. It no longer has you in its grip. And thirdly, forgiveness is not necessarily reconciliation. It does not mean you must trust the person who harmed you or welcome them back into your life. Forgiveness is a purely internal act of healing that you do for yourself. Reconciliation is an external act that involves two people, and it requires that trust be rebuilt and that the other person demonstrate a change in behavior. Sometimes, the most compassionate and self-loving thing to do is to forgive someone from a great distance, choosing to protect yourself from further harm while still releasing the burden of your own anger. The Buddha offered a powerful teaching on this, illustrated by a simple story. One day, as he was teaching, a man from a rival school of thought came and began to shout at him, hurling a torrent of insults and abuse. The Buddha listened in complete silence, with a calm and unwavering presence, until the man had exhausted his rage and fallen silent. The Buddha then asked him a simple question. "Sir, he said. If you prepare a gift for someone and you offer it to them, but that person does not accept your gift, to whom does the gift then belong? The man, taken aback, thought for a moment and replied, "Well, if they do not accept it, then it would still belong to me." The Buddha smiled gently. "Exactly so," he said. "Today, you have offered me the gift of your anger and your insults. I have chosen not to accept it. This is the essence of forgiveness. Other people's anger, their hatred, their cruelty, it belongs to them. It is their hot coal. It only becomes our burden, our suffering, if we choose to reach out our hands and accept the gift. Forgiveness is the wise and self-protective act of politely refusing to accept another person's poison. We let it remain their own. So how do we practice this profound act of letting go? It begins, as all healing does, with a mindful acknowledgement of the pain. We must allow ourselves to feel the hurt that was caused, without judgment. But then, we must pivot to the heart of the practice, which is the cultivation of understanding. We try, for a moment, to see the person who harmed us not as a two-dimensional villain, but as a complex, suffering human being. We practice compassion. We recognize that their harmful actions almost certainly arose from their own deep well of suffering, their own fear, their own ignorance, their own craving, their own unhealed wounds. This does not excuse their behavior, but it depersonalizes it. We begin to see that their actions were less about us and more about their own inner turmoil. When we can see their humanity, even in their flaws, the tight knot of our personal anger begins to loosen. We can then make a conscious choice, an intention, to let go. We can say to ourselves, "For the sake of my own peace, for the sake of my own freedom, I choose to release you from the debt I thought you owed me. I release this burden." This may be a process, a choice we have to make many times, but each time we make it, the coal in our hand cools a little more. This same process of compassion and understanding must also be turned inward to what is often the most difficult forgiveness of all, forgiving ourselves. We all carry a history of our own mistakes, the times we have caused harm to others or to ourselves through our own ignorance and pain. The inner critic can hold onto these failures with an iron grip, replaying them for years, bathing us in a constant, low-grade sense of guilt and shame. The path to self-forgiveness is the same. We must first acknowledge the harm we caused without flinching. Then, we must extend compassion to the person we were at that time. We must understand that we too were acting from our own conditioning, our own fear, our own confusion. We did the best we could with the awareness and the tools we had at that moment. If we knew better, we would have done better. We can look at that younger version of ourselves, not with contempt, but with the same tenderness we would offer to a struggling child. We can whisper to that part of our past, "You were in pain. You made a mistake. I see that now, and I forgive you." This is an act of profound self-reclamation. Forgiveness, then, is the ultimate key that unlocks the prison of the past. It does not change what happened, but it utterly transforms our relationship to it, freeing us to live fully in the present. It cuts the energetic cords that have kept us tethered to old pain, allowing us to walk into our future with a lighter heart and cleaner hands. By accepting the present moment as it is, and by forgiving the past for what it was, we arrive at a place of true freedom and agency. We are no longer defined by what has been done to us or by what we have done. We stand now in the clear, open space of the present, free to consciously and skillfully plant the seeds for the future we wish to create. This brings us to the great law of cause and effect, the wisdom of karma and intention. Having learned to accept the present moment, and to release the burdens of the past through forgiveness, we stand in a place of profound freedom. The chains of resentment have been broken. The war with what is has ceased. We are no longer prisoners of what has been. This naturally brings our attention to the one remaining territory of the mind, the future. Our minds are natural time travelers, and if they are not lost in regretting the past, they are often lost in rehearsing or worrying about the future. We wonder, what will happen to me? Will I be happy? Will I be safe? The wisdom tradition of the East addresses this fundamental human anxiety with the deep and often misunderstood teaching of karma. The word karma has been absorbed into Western culture, but it is often stripped of its profound meaning, reduced to a simplistic slogan of cosmic revenge, like what goes around, comes around, or mistaken for a synonym for a predetermined, unchangeable fate. To understand karma in its true, liberating sense, we must let go of these ideas. Karma is not a system of reward and punishment managed by an external judge. It is not destiny. The Buddha's teaching on karma is far more subtle, psychological, and empowering. It is the simple, impersonal, and natural law of cause and effect. It is like the law of gravity. It does not punish you for stepping off a cliff. It simply demonstrates the natural consequence of that action. The word karma literally means action or deed, but the Buddha made a revolutionary clarification. He taught that the very heart of karma, the factor that gives an action its moral and psychological weight, is satana, a Pali word that means intention, volition, or motive. It is the will behind the action that truly matters. Consider this: if you are walking and you accidentally trip and bump into someone, causing them to spill their cup of tea, the karmic result is very small. It was an accident. The intention was not to cause harm. But if you walk up to that same person and, with a heart full of anger, intentionally knock the cup from their hand, the karmic result is immense. The physical action is similar, but the intention is worlds apart. The first action creates a fleeting moment of awkwardness. The second action plants a powerful seed of anger and aggression deep within your own mind. This is the key. Karma is not just about our physical actions. It includes our words and, most powerfully, our thoughts, because all of them spring from intention. Every moment of our life, we are planting seeds. This is perhaps the most helpful way to understand karma, as a process of farming. Our mind is the field. Our intentions are the seeds. Our actions are the planting. The results we experience in our life are the harvest. If a farmer wishes to harvest a crop of sweet, delicious mangoes, what must she do? She must first plant mango seeds. She cannot plant the seeds of a thorny, bitter bush and then pray to the sky for mangoes to grow. The nature of the harvest is inherent in the nature of the seed. Furthermore, she must tend to the seeds. She must water them, make sure they have sunlight, and protect them from weeds. In the same way, our lives are a constant process of planting and tending. When we have an intention of generosity and follow it with an act of giving, we are planting a wholesome seed. When we have an intention of kindness and follow it with a gentle word, we are planting a wholesome seed. When we cultivate a moment of mindfulness, of presence, of patience, we are tending to our inner garden, creating the conditions for peace to grow. Conversely, when we allow our mind to be overcome with an intention of greed, anger, or hatred, we are planting unwholesome seeds. Every time we act on that greed, speak with a heart full of rage, or allow our mind to spin in a loop of obsessive worry, we are watering the weeds. The law of karma is simple. The harvest will always match the seeds that were planted. You will not gather mangoes from a field of thorns. You will not find lasting peace and happiness if you are planting seeds of anger and craving. This understanding completely transforms our relationship with the past, present, and future. The past is simply the collection of seeds that have already been planted. Their results may be ripening now, or may ripen later, but the planting is done. We cannot change it. The future is the potential harvest, which has not yet arrived. The crucial insight is this: the only time we have any power, the only place where we can make a choice, the only moment where we can plant a new seed, is right now, in this present moment. This liberates us from the anxiety of worrying about the future. The best and only way to take care of the future is to take impeccable care of the present moment. If you want a future filled with more peace, plant a seed of peace right now by taking a single mindful breath. If you want a future with more love, plant a seed of love right now by offering a kind word to someone. If you want a future with more wisdom, plant a seed of wisdom right now by choosing to let go of a petty resentment. The future is not a destination we arrive at. It is a reality we are co-creating with every intention we hold in this very moment. Seen in this light, the teaching of karma is not one of fear, but one of ultimate empowerment. It means that we are not helpless victims of a chaotic world or a predetermined fate. Our happiness and our suffering are not random. They are, to a very large degree, the results of our own actions and intentions. We are the farmers of our own lives. We are the architects of our own experience. This is a profound responsibility, but it is not a heavy burden. It is a recognition of our own inherent dignity and our creative power to shape our reality from the inside out. But what of the past? What of the unwholesome seeds of anger, ignorance, and greed that we have all planted in our lives? Are we doomed to suffer their full harvest? Here, the teaching offers more hope. While we cannot go back in time and unplant a seed, we can change the quality of the field in which it is planted. Imagine you have a cup of water and you stir in a large spoonful of salt. The water becomes undrinkable. The salt is like a past negative action. But now, imagine you take that same spoonful of salt and dissolve it in a vast, clean, freshwater lake. The effect of the salt becomes negligible, almost unnoticeable. Your practice in the present moment is the act of turning the small cup of your mind into a vast lake. By consistently planting wholesome seeds, be practicing mindfulness, cultivating compassion, generating forgiveness, and acting with kindness, you create such a positive, healthy inner environment that the results of past negative karma are weakened and purified. You are not erasing the past, but you are creating a present so vast and wholesome that the past no longer has the power to define you. We can, therefore, let go of our fear of the future and our regret for the past, and instead bring our full, undivided, and heroic attention to this moment. This is where our life is unfolding. This is where our freedom lies. This is where we plant the seeds of our own liberation. Our intentions shape our actions. Our actions, repeated over time, become our habits. Our habits solidify into our character. And our character, in a very real way, becomes our destiny. By taking care of our intentions, we take care of it all. We have now journeyed from the depths of our own mind to our relationships with others and the world. We have learned to accept the past and to consciously create our future. Now, all that remains is to weave these threads together into a single, cohesive tapestry, to understand how all these practices culminate in a state of true, and lasting peace. We have walked a long path together. We began with the frantic, restless energy of a mind that felt separate, a mind that felt besieged by the world. We looked deeply into the nature of this feeling, this pervasive sense of dissatisfaction that the Buddha called dukkha. We diagnosed its cause, not in the world outside, but in the inner mechanism of craving and aversion, the endless thirst of a self that feels incomplete. And then we were given a promise of peace, and a practical blueprint to find it, the Noble Eightfold Path. We have examined each tool in that kit, from the clarity of right view to the profound stillness of right concentration. We have explored how to work with difficult emotions, how to cultivate compassion for ourselves and others, and how to see through the powerful illusions of permanence and a separate self. We have arrived at the edge of a vast understanding, the realization of interconnectedness, the truth that we are not isolated islands, but waves in a single, magnificent ocean. So where does this leave us? Standing here, with this new knowledge, what does it mean to live, day to day, knowing that you are intrinsically part of a whole, a vast and intricate tapestry of becoming? This is not a final lesson, but a final integration. This is the moment we learn to see the great tapestry and find our true place within it. The most profound shift that occurs from this understanding is the movement from intellectual knowledge to embodied wisdom, to hear that you are selfless, that the world is impermanent, that all things are connected, is one thing. It is interesting, a philosophical curiosity, but to live it, to feel it in your bones, is to be reborn. It is the difference between reading a description of warmth and feeling the sun on your skin. The purpose of this entire journey has not been to fill your head with new ideas, but to change the very ground of your being. It is to stop identifying with the frantic, chattering narrator in your skull, and to begin identifying with the silent, aware space in which that narrator's voice arises and falls away. This is the ultimate freedom. The voice can chatter all it wants about anxieties, regrets, and desires, but you are no longer its prisoner. You are the listening presence. You are the sky, and the thoughts are merely clouds passing through. They are not you. They cannot harm you unless you choose to believe they are you, unless you grasp onto them and build your identity out of their fleeting forms. This is why liberation, or nirvana, is so often misunderstood in the West. It is not an escape from the world. It is not a quietistic retreat into a cave, literal or metaphorical. It is the exact opposite. It is a full, complete, and fearless engagement with the world, but without the distorting lens of the ego. It is escaping the prison of me, my, and mine, so that you can finally truly meet the world as it is. Imagine a dancer who for years has danced with crippling self-consciousness. Every step is judged. Every movement is a source of anxiety. He is so focused on not making a mistake that he cannot hear the music. He is dancing only with the idea of himself. Then one day, he has a realization. The dance is not about him. The dance is an expression of the music itself. He is not the dancer, he is the dance. And in that moment of surrender, all tension falls away. He becomes fluid, graceful, joyful. He is no longer separate from the music, but an extension of it. He can now engage with the dance more fully and freely than ever before. This is what it means to live from a place of interconnectedness. You stop fighting life, and you begin to dance with it. You engage with its joys and its sorrows, its beauty and its pain, not as a separate entity under threat, but as the unfolding of the great tapestry itself. There is a beautiful story of a Zen master and a young boy. The boy, feeling angry at the world, goes to a wide valley and shouts, "I hate you." And from across the valley, an echo returns, "I hate you." The boy is startled and frightened and runs back to the master, telling him that there is a mean man in the valley who shouted hateful things at him. The master smiles gently and tells the boy to go back, and this time to shout, "I love you." The boy is hesitant, but he trusts his teacher. He returns to the valley and shouts with all his heart, "I love you." And the echo returns, just as powerfully, "I love you." This simple story holds the entire key to our practice in the world. The world, the great tapestry, is a valley of echoes. It does not have a fixed nature of being kind or cruel. It largely reflects back to us the energy we project into it. A mind clouded by anger and suspicion will see threats and insults everywhere. A mind cultivated in compassion and wisdom will see opportunities for connection and understanding. This is where our practice becomes profoundly practical and world-changing. Understanding interconnectedness is not a passive state. It is an active choice, moment by moment, to decide what you will shout into the valley. Every single action, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, becomes your contribution to the whole. When you wash a bowl, you can do it with resentment, thinking of other things you'd rather be doing. This is a small shout of, "I hate you," into the tapestry. Or you can wash that same bowl with full attention, feeling the warmth of the water, the smoothness of the ceramic, grateful for the food it held. This is a shout of, "I love you." When you are in a difficult conversation, you can react from your ego, defending your position, seeking to win. This is a shout of division. Or you can listen deeply, from a place of shared humanity, seeking to understand the other person's suffering. This is a shout of connection. This is the real work. The path is not found only on the meditation cushion. The path is found in the checkout line at the grocery store, in the way you answer an email, in the way you listen to your child. Each moment is an opportunity to weave a thread of mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom into the great tapestry. This is your power. It is immense. You are not just a passive observer of the tapestry, you are one of its active weavers. This leads us to the final, most crucial understanding of peace. True, unshakable peace is not the absence of problems. To seek a life without any difficulty, without any pain or loss, is to seek the impossible. Storms will always come. The winds of change will blow. People will get sick. Relationships will end. Plans will fail. The tapestry includes threads of darkness as well as light. To deny this is to live in a fantasy. The peace taught by the Buddha is not the peace of a calm sea, but the peace of a skilled sailor who can navigate any storm. It is an inner quality. It is the ability to be with the chaos of the world without the chaos being inside of you. It is to have built an inner refuge, a sanctuary of stillness and clarity in your own heart. When the storm of anger arises, you can find refuge in the awareness that observes it. When the waves of grief crash over you, you can find refuge in the deep knowing that this too is impermanent. You become like a great mountain. The sun shines on it. The rains beat down upon it. The winds howl around it. Snow covers it. But the mountain remains. It is unshakably itself. This inner stability is the fruit of the entire path. It is the peace that surpasses all understanding, because it does not depend on anything outside of yourself. It is not something you acquire. It is something you uncover. It has been there all along, buried beneath the noise of the monkey mind and the grasping of the ego. Our whole journey has simply been a process of clearing away the debris so that this innate, indestructible peace can finally shine through. This is your birthright. It is the solid ground upon which you can stand, and from which you can engage with the sacred, beautiful, and ever-changing dance of life, with an open heart and a quiet mind. We began our journey together in a quiet room, illuminated by the cold, blue light of a screen, a reflection of a world that feels both hyper-connected and profoundly lonely. We acknowledged a universal feeling, a subtle, pervasive hum of dissatisfaction that runs beneath the surface of modern life, the quiet ache of a cup that never seems to fill. From that honest starting point, we walked a long and ancient path. We dared to look directly at this dissatisfaction, this dukkha, not as a personal failure, but as a fundamental truth of the human condition, a diagnosis shared by all. We traced its origins to the restless fire of wanting, the relentless grasping and pushing away that defines so much of our inner life. And then, in the heart of that understanding, we discovered the most liberating truth of all, the truth of Nirodha, the reality that this fire can be stilled, that the suffering can end. We were given a map, the Noble Eightfold Path, a practical and profound guide, not to a celestial heaven, but to the peace that is possible in this very life, in this very mind. We learned to see the world through a clearer lens, to cultivate intentions of kindness, to speak words that heal, and to act in ways that create ripples of peace. We discovered the quiet power of a mind that is mindful, present, and concentrated. A mind that can observe its own workings without being swept away. We saw that our actions, our karma, are the very tools with which we shape our reality, and we learned to wield them with wisdom and care. We opened our hearts to a love that asks for nothing in return, and a compassion that trembles with the joys and sorrows of the world. If there is one single truth to carry forth from our time together, let it be this: peace is not a destination you must travel to. It is not a prize to be won, an achievement to be unlocked, or a commodity to be purchased. It is not waiting for you in a different home, a different job, or a different relationship. Peace is your original nature. It is the vast, clear sky that is perpetually present behind the passing clouds of thought and emotion. It is the deep, silent ocean that remains untroubled by the waves on its surface. This path has not been about becoming someone new. It has been about gently, patiently, and compassionately unbecoming everything that is not you. It is a return to the quiet sanctuary that has always been waiting within. The journey does not end here. In fact, it is only just beginning, but you are not empty-handed. The tools are now yours. The breath is your anchor, a constant, faithful friend, ready to bring you back to the present moment, again and again. Mindfulness is your lamp in the darkness. Compassion is your guide. You have the capacity to be the calm center in the midst of life's storms. You have the power to stop feeding the wolves of anger and despair, and to nourish the seeds of joy and tranquility within your own heart. The path forward is walked one step at a time, one breath at a time. The work is simply to begin, to show up for your own life with awareness and kindness. The journey outward has ended. The journey inward begins now, with this breath and with this one.